All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. As we got situated, you can see we have a couple of special things that are happening on today. We are so glad to have some special guests. I'm going to call this regular meeting of the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees to order, and we will start with our roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. President Angela Taylor.
I'm here.
Vice President Diane Nicolette.
Good afternoon.
I am here. Trustee Church.
Here by Zoom.
Trustee Mayberry.
Here.
Trustee Rodriguez.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
And our student representative is not here yet. We have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Thank you all for being here, and we're going to ask you all to stand for the pledge, and we're going to ask President Brian Sandoval, former governor of the great state of Nevada, to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are very excited today to have some students from Natchez Elementary School. Our principal is here. I want to make sure I introduce Principal Chapin. You want to say a little something? We're going to have a song. We're going to have a flag song. You want to say something or have staff? Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
A whole quick little presentation.
Let's do the whole situation then.
Yeah, here we go.
Awesome. Good afternoon and welcome. We're very excited to be here. Thank you. Very honored to be asked. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I would like to start with an acknowledgement and appreciation of the tribes of the Great Basin for their land that we are meeting on today. We honor the elders that have come before us and those who stand with us today.
Thanks for having us. We've got a whole bunch of goodness into this presentation here. And I think on a personal level, I just want to first thank this for starting a little bit late. I've been driving from Montana since 3 this morning just to get back for this, and I just pulled in.
Yay,
So,
yay.
that's right. And I might not be parked completely in the right spot. Just
Yes.
hook a guy up.
Heads up.
Yeah.
Heads up. School police, heads up.
And then just a quick personal thank you to Dr. McNeil and Ms. Byersdorf for this board meeting for all of your support of Natchez Elementary School. We really appreciate both of you, and I believe you'll probably become consultants next. I think that's the next phase, so we look forward to seeing you in that capacity. What we've got is a 4th grade class. This is from Nevada State Teacher of the Year, Deanne Hicks, her 4th grade class.
Yes.
So they each have hand drums that they've made themselves. These materials were purchased from the Nevada's Donors Choose grant. So funded the materials. We brought in Nick Cortez and Heidi Barlise from the Pyramid Lake Paiute Language and Culture Department to teach these students how to make these hand drums in a traditional way. And they are going to sing the flag song. To introduce about the flag song a little bit, please welcome to the microphone Stacy Burns.
Welcome, Ms. Burns.
Thank you. Pishamwa. Na Stacy Burns Minania no onarka na koba wechi kimada na pasia no we got you. Hello, my name is Stacy Burns. I work with the Reno Sparks City and Colony Language and Culture Program, but then I also do have a collaboration with the Washoe County School District Paiute language classes. So we do instruct there as well. I'm very honored to be here, and it fills my heart along with our elders that are trying their hardest to revitalize our language and our culture. So to see our youth here so proud and so excited, and they built their own drums. They made them themselves with their own beautiful little hands, and they know our songs. It's a beautiful day for us here with our Numa people, so I just wanted to let you know that I'm honored to be here. So I also wanted to let you know they will be singing the Shoshone flag song. They do learn from Miss Judy Trejo, and it has been passed down and created by a veteran named Popeye McLeod. So it's very important to know the histories of our songs, and that this was created by a veteran. And this song is also to, I believe they say it instead of what we would consider the, Pledge of Allegiance. So when we say that, yes, and the national anthem as well. So it's also our traditional cultural way of acknowledging our veterans, those that fought very hard for our country. So just a little bit of background on that as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Remember to sing loud. They sing really loud in class.
You know how that is, Miss Hicks. You getting, you already know. That was a good fade out.
Again, thank you so much for having us, and we've really enjoyed this experience, and you guys did awesome.
You did awesome.
We also have
awesome.
some gifts here to bring.
She always brings gifts.
I know. Mrs. Burns is good with the gifts. So these are gifts from both the 4th grade class as well as from the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. So welcome.
Thank you. Let's give one more round of applause for the Shoshone flag song for our students from Natchez Elementary School.
Amazing job, Natchez.
Awesome job. Our teacher of the year, Ms. Hicks, Ms. Burns, and our relationship with the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. And thank you for getting here safely, Mr. Chapin. Thank you for getting here safely, and that we don't want to talk about how fast you drove or even where you parked. That's totally beside the point.
Just bent the speed limit.
That's it. It's all right. Thank you so much for being here. You're welcome. Thank you.
Safe. Wonderful job.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, we're going to go right on to agenda item 1.04. This is an action to adopt the agenda. Looking for a motion if that's the pleasure of the trustees. Okay, well, one thing I want to do, I'm sorry, although I can do this after, I should have done this before the motion, so I'm going to pause it for just a moment. We're going to reorder. Typically, if we have something of high interest, we'll hold it till 4 o'clock so that if there are teachers, other employees in the district that would like to be a part of it. So we're going to reorder agenda item 3.01 and move it towards the end of the meeting, either right before or right after 3.05, depending upon the time on that. So that being said, back to you, Trustee Rodriguez. Still motion from Trustee Rodriguez to accept the agenda as reordered. Is there a second? Okay, there's a second from Clerk Minetto. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Thank you, Trustee Church. I saw your thumbs up. Any opposition? All right, let the record show that the motion passes unanimously. All right, we're going on to the consent agenda. And we are, before we take motions on the consent, first of all, let me ask you, is there any trustee that would like to pull any consent agenda items 2.02 through 2.10? Trustee Church, your thumb is up. You'd like to pull an item, sir? You're on mute. You're on mute, Trustee Church?
How am I now?
Yes, much better. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The item on the
Uh-oh. No, he's not on mute. He's frozen. That's a little.
Okay, we got it.
Let's see if we can't. Okay, you're back. Wait. Let's try again, Trustee Church.
If you can hear me, the first item on UNR.
What can you give us an agenda item number? Is it 2.02?
I believe it is. Let me pull
Okay,
up.
I think that's it. It's the first item.
Yes, 2.02. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have some people for public comment on that item anyway. So, okay. Then we're looking for, if it's the pleasure of the board, for approval of consent agenda items 2.03 through 2.10. Is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment. Thank you, sir. On these, no, on those agenda items, none. Thank you, Council. Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Trustee Rodriguez to approve consent agenda items 2.03 through 2.10. Is there a second? Second from Trustee Mayberry. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposition? All right, the motion carries. Let the record show that it is unanimous. So we will go on to agenda item 2.02. We'll ask any staff for that agenda item, go ahead and come forward. And we'll see what your question is, Trustee Church, and then I know we do have public comment on this agenda item as well. Thank you.
Sure, and I did find the email from Mr. Searcy on that. My question is, what's the purpose of this? What's the benefit to the school district to lock ourselves into a 10-year contract with UNR to sell them first? I mean, I don't see the point of it. If somebody comes along, say the state, and they want to pay more, or we could determine who's who at that point. I don't quite understand the logic.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Searcy?
Sure. Good afternoon. Adam Searcy, for the record, Chief of Facilities. I think to try to respond to your comment, Trustee Church, really the primary advantage for the school district would be the certainty of a buyer, a governmental agency buyer who is committing to appraised value acquisition at such time. I want to clarify for the record, the item does not commit or even imply really that the property would be transferred or sold at any point in time. But also I think more qualitatively, it represents a strategic partnership and an enhanced collaboration between these two major educational facility agencies. That's really the summary of the purpose from that standpoint.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Searcy. I will add, this might be helpful, Trustee Church, in terms of your concerns, that what if someone else comes along and wants to pay a higher price? The law prohibits us from paying from receiving more than appraised value. And so there wouldn't, if it's appraised value anyway, that would, just for our trustees to understand that it's not, we aren't making a decision that now we're going to take less than. We can't get other than appraised value, than the fair market value for it anyway. And as Mr. Searcy says, it doesn't lock in anything other than that. Other questions, comments, Trustee Church?
Just to be clear, it doesn't obligate UNR to buy it either. They could say, we don't want it, we changed our mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to hear public comment.
Okay, so no other. Thank you, Mr. Searcy. No other questions from you, Trustee Church, at this time? Nope. Okay, JJ, public comment?
Brian Sandoval.
Please, right up here to the podium, sir. Thank you. President Sandoval, welcome, sir.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board, Madam Superintendent. For the record, Brian Sandoval, President of the University of Nevada, Reno. And first of all, I want to take this public opportunity to thank you all, thank the faculty and staff of the Washoe County School District, because all three of my children were educated in the district, and they've done extremely well. And the dedication and commitment and passion of your staff and your faculty have really helped make them the persons they are and have helped them to be successful. So I'm eternally grateful as a parent, a proud parent of all of that. But first, I want to extend my appreciation to the staff with regard to this transaction. And with your permission, Trustee Church, I'm going to enter some comments into the record and then happy to respond to your questions from the university's perspective. But as was stated by Mr. Searcy, there is a long history of our collaboration between our two educational institutions for the betterment of Washoe County and the state of Nevada. And I did a little bit of research. I think it's 130 plus years that we've been working together. So it is quite a history. And we've also enjoyed the opportunity to be next door neighbors with you all. And that is part of the inspiration in terms of why we're here today. So this relationship is indeed why we're on the agenda today. And we understand that you may or may not be making plans to relocate, and that could be 1 year from now, it could be 30 years from now, but it truly is a unique opportunity for the university as a neighbor to begin planning our growth needs in the event that this happens. And Trustee Church, to be responsive to your question, we simply, for lack of a better term, want to be first in line. And we understand the law. We understand that there would be an appraisal and we would happily pay the full market value for that. But this is one of the few, if only, pieces of property that are immediately contiguous to our campus and would actually provide us with the opportunity to be connected with our Valley Road campus and our College of Agriculture, Biotechnology, and Natural Resources. You know, I suppose the next question is, what would you anticipate doing with that property? And one of the biggest challenges I think all of you appreciate and understand is affordable housing. And what we would see is an opportunity not only to have some educational opportunities, but for some affordable housing opportunities for our students, faculty, and staff. And with a parcel of this size, it really is a unique opportunity to perhaps develop a university village type concept where everyone could come together, and we think it would be very beneficial. But as I said, we do have a master plan, and this falls within the master plan that we have, and we really do see some synergy there in terms of what could happen. But by no means would we want to be any implication that we were looking to push anybody out. This is on your timetable and on your schedule. We just want to be there when that time comes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. Okay, other questions, comments? Trustee Mayberry.
I'll just make a motion when you're ready, Madam President.
I'm ready, if there's a motion.
Yeah, move that the Board of...
Is there more public? She only waved one card. Okay, thank you.
Move that the Board of Trustees...
Please.
Approve the memorandum of understanding between the Nevada System of Higher Education on behalf of the University of Nevada, Reno, and the Washoe County School District regarding the property located 425 East 9th Street in Reno, Nevada, commonly referred to as the Washoe County School District Administrative Complex.
Thank you, Trustee Mayberry. There is a motion on the floor for the approval of a consent agenda item 2.02. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Trustee Rodriguez. Any further discussion?
I just want to add, President Taylor and President Sandoval, that this is an important decision for this district because education supports education. And when we partner together, we best serve the community that we're all rallying around. So in full support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. Trustee Church, did you have your hand up, sir? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm good with it. By the way, the governor has not aged in 10 years. He's looking wonderful. And
that's very true.
Yeah, I think
let the record show.
Let the record show that. It clearly shows that. And when he made my ears perk when he said housing, because who knows down the road, we may have a mutually beneficial relationship on that housing. But yeah, I'm all for it.
Thank you, Trustee Church. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approving consent agenda item 2.02, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Okay, the motion carries. Let the record show it is unanimous. Thank you very much. Such an honor and a privilege to have you here.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, members of the board. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Superintendent McNeil for her service to Washoe County. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. See, we will move on to agenda item 3.01. 3.01. I mean, I'm sorry, we removed that one. 3.02. 3.02. adoption of Washoe County School District Board Resolution 22-003. This is a resolution recognizing May 1st through the 31st, the month of May, as Mental Health Awareness Month in the Washoe County School District. We do have presenters, and then we want to, after the presenters, we want to read the resolution that the board is going to consider, and Trustee Smith is going to read that for us at that time. Ms. Loudon, welcome.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Catherine Loudon, and I coordinate school counseling and social work for the Washoe County School District. Thank you, President Taylor, members of the trustees, and Superintendent McNeil for having us today. We have some really incredible individuals here today from the schools that we want to introduce you to. So you all may know Eric Olson, who is leading the Project Aware grant and initiatives that we're doing in our district with school social work. Project Aware is a capacity building grant. But behind me are some trailblazing clinical level mental health professionals that you have in your district that I would very much like you to meet in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. These individuals have worked hard for your district and all have clinical level licenses. I'm going to let them come up and introduce themselves. And then we would like to go into the proclamation. Washoe County School District is one of the only districts in the state of Nevada that has a designated position at the administrative and clinical level for professionals at this level.
Thank you, Ms. Loudon. Okay, someone has to go first.
Hi, I'm Tracy Squire Charagioli. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been in the district for several years, but now in this capacity working with Eric on Project Aware, and I am so honored and so excited to be part of a district that is championing mental health for our students and our families and our staff and our communities. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Social workers, yay.
Yay.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Marquez. I'm a marriage and family therapist and clinical professional counselor. I've been at Galena High School for 5 years, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here because I love it. So thank you.
All right. Yep, MFTs, love you too.
My name is Kendall Pringle. I too am a marriage and family therapist. I have been at Reed High School for the last 5 years, and I look forward to the many years ahead of us and working with our team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Danielle Fargo. I am also a marriage and family therapist, and I have been at Grace Warner Elementary School for this is my 6th year.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. Eric, did you want to say anything to the board?
Welcome, Mr. Olson.
Good afternoon, Eric Olson, the Project Aware Coordinator in the Counseling and Social Work Department. I just really appreciate the opportunity to have school mental health recognized. You know, as I think about this, we know that for our students with mental health challenges, the effects on their daily functioning is really significant. And as teens and youth, their success in school is a big part of their daily functioning. We also know that despite the many community resources we do have, there's still tremendous waiting lists for mental health services. We want to make sure our students are okay. So thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. I think as before we read the resolution, just in terms of comments, so many people don't understand how important it is to have the people that are behind you in the buildings doing what you do each and every day. And if we didn't recognize it before COVID, which it was still critical before COVID, we know that. Man, COVID just really came that to the forefront. I wish we can clone you so that we can have the presence in all of the schools across the district all the time, because you would still all be very, very busy. And I'm so glad you mentioned also the support for our families and for our staff, because mental health is real. It's real, and to be able to provide that support just makes a world of difference. So I'm proud of us as a board and as a district, Superintendent McNeil, that we have you and that we take the time to recognize the important, critical work that you do. Trustee Smith.
All right. Thank you, Madam President. Washoe County School District Board Resolution 22-003. a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Washoe County School District recognizing May 2022 as the National Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas the need for comprehensive, coordinated mental health services for children, youth, staff, and families places a critical responsibility to our whole community. And whereas mental health awareness and care are essential to everyone's overall health and well-being. Whereas it is appropriate for Washoe County School District to recognize our role in the attention to mental health, and whereas all school staff and families have experienced times of difficulty and stress in their lives, and whereas prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health conditions, and whereas there is a strong body of research that supports specific strategies that all schools can use to better handle challenges, address care, and protect overall health and mental well-being. And whereas mental health concerns are real and prevalent in our schools and can have an impact on educational outcomes. And whereas with early and effective care, those individuals with mental health challenges can and do lead full, productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen share the support of mental health challenges and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness, access to care, and prevention efforts. And whereas Washoe County School District encourages all to participate as appropriate in uniting to meet the mental health needs of children and youth while reducing stigma. Now, therefore, the Board of Trustees do hereby recognize and proclaim May 1st, 2022 through May 31st, 2022 as Mental Health Awareness Month in the Washoe County School District, adopted this 10th day of May 2022.
Yes. We have 2 copies of those, of that. Oh, 4 copies of the resolution? All right, all 4. Awesome. Mm-hmm.
And these are for you, Eric.
All right. Hey, Min needs flowers too.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for all of you, for all your work. And please tell your colleagues how much we appreciate your work. We have some public comment? Oh, we need to vote on the resolution. Sorry. Yes. Wait, don't wait. It's not done. Wait, Eric. Okay, we can certainly do a picture. And let's do, let's entertain the motion on agenda item 3.02. Okay, Trustee Rodriguez is on the roll today. All right, moved by Trustee Rodriguez that the board accepts the resolution. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Nicolette. There's a motion. We're in the middle of the motion. Did we take a public comment? Okay, let's keep it tight. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. So good afternoon. So I'd like to support mental health issues. So I know that sometimes students who have a mental health issue outside their classroom that can affect their student learning ability to have, and we're glad to have a cancer and mental health support to support students to increase the student performance, all kinds of stuff. And also, I recommend that we can end bullies with the mental health, with the expanding cancer and mental health issue. I want to say thank you for that, for protecting students. And we want to make sure that we have a positive learning environment. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pablo Duran. Okay, so now we have a motion on the floor, and there is a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposition? All right, the motion is carried. Let the record show it is unanimous. Now we can get excited about the resolution. All right. And is there a picture? Okay. Okay, she's already ready for it. Okay.
Thank you
all right, thank you once again. Thank you. I should have given you a chance to make comments. I'm sorry. All right. Now we're going to go on, since we're in the resolution mode right now. We're going to go on to agenda item 3.03. This is adoption of Washoe County School District Board Resolution 22-004, a resolution recognizing May 15th through the 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week in the Washoe County School District. And our presenter for this is for possible action, is Mr. Adam Searcy. Mr. Searcy?
Hi, good afternoon again. Adam Searcy, I'm Chief Facilities Management Officer for the school district, also representing the Northern Nevada chapter of the American Public Works Association as their current, first past president of that organization. But really here today to talk about the staff that helps make our buildings and facilities safe and healthy and clean for everybody who enters them, the public, the students, and all of our employees. The resolution speaks for itself. I'll let you guys read it. It talks about resiliency, of course. All of us responded to emergencies and change like never before over the last year, but the school district sometimes flies under the radar in terms of its public works staff, professionals, engineers, support staff, contractors, and partners. And in actuality, we have one of, if not the largest public works department in Northern Nevada, and pump out an incredibly impressive scale and breadth of a program. So there's a number of folks here who I want to recognize. I don't have flowers for them. The punchline is that they're the ones who actually get this done. For better or worse, you get to hear and see from me a bit, but these folks are the ones who really solve the problem. So I've just got a couple of names, and then if we could have everybody stand up and be recognized. First off, Dave Yonker is one of our district's several electricians only, and he solves problems on a daily basis that you can't put a price tag on. Troubleshooting, and has done so for many years. Thanks for being here, Dave. Next up, Lana Ball with the housekeeping department. Keeps everybody in line. We all know the staffing challenges that we have. You can scarcely imagine what it's like every day when we've got 50, 60, 75 substitute vacancies across the district with respect to housekeeping, on top of any manner of floods or spills or new exciting adventures on a daily basis. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam.
We asked Eddie Chacon to be here this afternoon. He's our Assistant Director of Planning and Design. Again, you get to hear and see a lot of the work that their department starts from, but Eddie has been with the district for many, many years and really knows the details behind the big story. What you see, somebody's got to figure out the details, and Eddie's in the thick of all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie.
Also with us today, but Rebecca Bradley is a construction project manager, also in the weeds, out in the field, dealing with any manner of unforeseens, right? We've got something leaking behind that wall. We've got to open up that wall. Lord knows what we're going to find. Rebecca's problem solving out there with Dave, with housekeeping, with everybody in the field, solving these problems for the district on a day in, day out basis. All those projects on the consent agenda, she's one of the large group of individuals that help bring those to life. So thank you.
Thank you.
Also with us, Jeremy Harrison is our Assistant Director of Environmental Assessment and Environmental Safety and Assessment. So when I talk about tracking our assets, knowing where best to invest them, and keeping our students healthy and safe when we have hazmat issues or disturbances, Jeremy and his team all work together to complement the work that we do and solve problems. So thank you very much for what you do, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
There's a whole group of individuals who couldn't be here today, and several of these folks, colleagues, who chose to be here as well, who deserve our recognition and also here to support their colleagues. So that's all I have to say. If I could have everybody stand really quick from Capital Projects and Facilities Management Department.
Yeah. really just a huge thanks to all of you. Please have your seat. I'm glad you're here. We're glad you're here. Trustee Mayberry is going to read the resolution. But once again, if we didn't know how important the role is that you play, just look at these last few years, all the schools that have been built, all the changes that had to happen over COVID. We're opening schools, we're going back, we have to keep safe, we have to do this. I mean, things have to be cleaned. I mean, just all of that. Everything that you do makes a difference every single day. Students cannot learn and teachers cannot teach in the best environment without the work that you do every single day. So we cannot make it without you. You don't get enough recognition, so I'm so glad that as a board and the superintendent made sure that we had this on the agenda just to recognize, let's just say, but to bring you here, to have a resolution, and just let you know if you never hear it again, and I'm sure that you will, we cannot do what we do without you. Matters so much. Trustee Mayberry?
Thank you, Madam President. Honored to read this. Washoe County School District Board Resolution 22-004. Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Washoe County School District recognizing May 15th through 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week in the Washoe County School District. Whereas the year 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association. And whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Washoe County, Nevada. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public work professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in a public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Washoe County, Nevada to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public work programs in their respective communities. And whereas there are hundreds of Washoe County School District staff who have dedicated their professional lives to constructing and maintaining public assets, and whereas these professionals may touch the lives of students or may never be known. Now, therefore, the Board of Trustees do hereby recognize May 15th, 2022 through May 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week in the Washoe County School District, adopted this 10th day of May 2022. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We asked, we do have some public comment before we get a motion. And just so you know, we asked our two newest trustees to read our resolutions today. So thank you so much. Please, public comment, JJ.
Pablo Nava Duran.
Welcome back, Mr. Duran.
I want to say thank you for WC1 and above public work for better new school. We got 3 new school, 2 middle school, 1 middle school in 2019, 2 more school in 2020, 1 middle school, 1 middle school, and 1 new elementary school in 2021. And now we have we got a two new school coming up for next year, which is a Y and a New Huck High School. So I'd like to say thank you for IMCC for that, and I will give you a present when I go on a zoning advisory committee. So thank you.
That sounds like something that probably illegal. So we'll just no, you didn't clap. Don't clap for that. That's not clap. We are prepared, however. Thank you for those comments, Mr. Nava Duran. We're looking for a motion to approve agenda item 3.03 with the resolution recognizing National Public Works Week.
So moved.
I'll second that.
You got to be ready today and just be leaning in because you might not make it. We do have a motion from Dr. Nicolette and a second from Trustee Mayberry. Discussion, yes, sir.
Yep, I just want to thank Adam Searcy and everyone here for all that you guys do. I know you guys are probably a bunch of unsung heroes, and as a parent and as a trustee, I appreciate everything you guys do. And dare I say, speak for the whole board, this current board right now. We thank you guys. So thank you thank you for everything.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Trustee Rodriguez. And other comments? Okay, seeing none, we're ready for a motion. All those in favor of approving agenda item 3.03, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? All right, the motion is carried. Let the record show it is unanimous, and our superintendent has been chopping at the bits to talk about these two groups, and we'll do that, and then we'll go ahead, please.
Well, thank you so much, President Taylor. And this, I think just totally demonstrates how we work together as a WCSD family. When we talk about the supports of mental health professionals and everything that our social workers and our mental health professionals provide for our students and our staff, and then the fact that all of our facilities and our public works employees really do the hard work and the tough work to make sure that our students and our staff are safe, both emotionally and physically. And so please know that you are valued and that we truly, truly, truly appreciate what you do. Morning, noon, night, weekends, and on the holidays. You guys are there. So thank you so very, very much.
Again, thank you. Let's give one more round of applause for all of our public works team that's here. Amazing work. Really, really, really important work. Really important work. And just as a side note, Jeremy, if that public works stuff doesn't work out for you, you're a big boy. We can use you up here on the safety team. Okay. No, we appreciate you. We appreciate you being here. Thank you. Oh, picture time, absolutely. Oh, that's right. I see Sam sitting there. Of course, that means picture time. Please, everyone from Public Works, come on up. Everyone from Public Works, come on up. And thank you so much for being here, all of you. Look, he's a big boy. Big boy. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And this is just a small fraction of the team. It's a small fraction of the team.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That cleared it out, didn't it? It's all right. Hey, it takes a lot of people to keep buildings safe, warm, and dry. So, and they do a great job. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 3.04. We see staff moving in. Sorry, Mark, you cleared the room, man, because there's it happens, yeah. Yeah, when the budget guy shows up, yeah, you're right. All right. This consideration of adoption of Washoe County School District Board Resolution 22005. This is a resolution directing that notice be given to Oversight Panel for School Facilities and the Debt Management Commission regarding the proposed issuance of up to $298,515,000 in general obligation bonds in one series or more, authorizing officers of the district to take other actions necessary to complete the issuance and related matters. And before us is our CFO, Mr. Mark Mathers. Mr. Mathers.
Thank you very much. As indicated by the President, this resolution begins the process for authorization of $298.515 million of general obligation bonds. This authorizes the CFO or superintendent to take this proposed issuance of debt to our oversight panel for school facilities and then to the County Debt Management Commission, of which Dr. Nicolette sits on. So these are general obligation bonds that carry the full faith and credit of the district. They are backed by property taxes we receive in our debt service fund, and these bonds were included in our 5-year capital improvement plan that you approved on April 12th. These actually are the first 2 years worth of general obligation bonds we plan to issue as part of that 5-year plan. We like to combine the issuance when we go to the Debt Management Commission just to be flexible and streamline the process. So from here, if you approve this resolution, we would again go to the Oversight Panel for School Facilities. That's a statutorily established body that approves debt, general obligation, rollover bond debt for all school districts. And so that would happen in early June, and then we would go to the County Debt Management Commission, and they must approve all general obligation bonds issued by local governments in the county. After we receive those two approvals, assuming we do, then we would come back to you, the Board of Trustees, for a final bond resolution, at which time we will have kind of fine-tuned and finalized the particulars to this issuance. So that'll happen later in the summer, if all things go as according to plan. So our general obligation debt is a significant, serious financial obligation of the district. I know some people can say this is a little dry, but because of its, the immense amount of debt we have, we thought we would go through a presentation to summarize our debt with you. We talk about it during the budget process. We talk about it during the CIP process. But again, we think it's important to kind of provide you with that information before you take a vote today. So again, we have, as you've heard before, we have three major types of debt that we issue as a district. The first type that we'll talk about today and that concerns this resolution are what we call in the state of Nevada rollover bonds. These are GO bonds, general obligation bonds, that are pledged by property taxes we still receive. We receive those in our debt fund. Our second type of debt are what we call WC1 bonds. These are also general obligation bonds, but they are double-barreled and also pledged by the 0.54% sales tax. And then lastly, we have medium-term notes. And so we'll go through real quickly each type of debt, again, just as a reminder to you, when we talk about our debt profile. So again, we have a tremendous amount of bonds or long-term debt here in the district, far greater than any other entity, at least in terms of local governments. We've got a little bit more than $500 million of rollover bonds outstanding, almost $600 million of outstanding WC1 debt, and then $6 million of medium-term notes. So our total debt is slightly over $1.1 billion. With this issuance of $298.5 million, we're coming close to $1.5 billion of long-term debt. So it's, again, a serious commitment. So again, as I said, rollover bonds are a term just, very specific to the state of Nevada, but these are general obligation bonds secured by the full faith and credit of the district. So they take a first lien, a first priority over all other obligations of the district. We pay them with the 38.85 cent property tax rate that you see on your property tax bill that comes to us directly from the county treasurer. And that is expected to generate a little bit more than $76 million next fiscal year. So, a large sum of money that we do receive even after the Incline Village settlement. So that includes the several million we pay off out of that fund for that settlement. And those bonds the authorization for those bonds do have an expiration date of 2035. And after that date, unless it's renewed, we would not be able to issue any more rollover bonds. Like all of our debt, the proceeds of those bonds, as well as the monies to pay that debt, are not held in our general fund. They are held in restricted funds, so we never commingle general fund monies with our debt service fund or bond proceeds. In addition to kind of the coverage factors I'll talk about, we also have a significant set of reserves to pay our debt service in a worst case scenario. Those total reserves amount to $75 million, which is roughly 9 months of our total debt currently. For rollover bonds, there is a statute that provides explicit authority for the types of uses we can spend those monies for, and that's shown in the last bullet point. So again, with this sale, or with these two sales that we plan for fiscal years 23 and 24, that will fund, as we showed you in the capital improvement plan, our annual capital renewal plan for the next 2 years. And then again, as we pivot away from growth kind of necessary new school facilities to reconstruction or more significant rehab and upgrades to our core schools, it will fund that. And that's, the specifics of that have yet to be determined, but we did provide funding for those projects over the next several years. So that's the intention of these bonds. So key factor when we look at our debt is, again, our ability to pay for that debt. So this chart shows you our revenues over time since fiscal year 2020, and we've seen very strong growth in property tax revenues. As you know, this community is growing. We're seeing a lot of new development, and of course we're seeing appreciation of housing prices, which has a kind of an indirect effect on our property tax revenues. So for fiscal year 23, based on estimates of the county treasurer, we budgeted $77.7 million in property tax revenues and interest earnings, and our actual debt service is $63.8 million. This is shown on the right-hand column. So we have very strong coverage for a very stable revenue source like this. Basically, 122% of debt service is covered through revenues. So again, that's why we're comfortable coming to you and proposing this level of new debt. We continue to see, again, strong growth. And as we talked before, property taxes kind of have a buffer to them, given that there's a significant amount of abatement on most people's homes, so that property tax values could fall and we'd still collect the same amount of money. This slide simply shows you graphically how our property tax revenues, which is the top yellow line, compared to our existing and proposed rollover bond debt. And so what you can see here in the yellow bars is our existing rollover bond debt. And as we've talked before, we have a lot of debt, pun intended, rolling off or maturing. And so that provides a lot of capacity to issue new debt in the future. So those were bonds issued 20 years ago that are now coming due for final payment over the next 5 to 7 years. So we're very comfortable in our ability to service that debt over the next 20 years, as you can see. Our next type of debt, again, is WC1 debt. I won't belabor this too much. You know full well about this revenue source. Again, we've seen very strong revenues of this revenue source so far, both in fiscal year 21 and so far in fiscal year 22, growth has been in excess of 15% year over year. So it's been far greater than what we would have budgeted for. Again, these are collected by a separate entity, in this case the state, and they go in a restricted fund. And you can see here the eligible uses, which is based on the ballot measure approved by voters in November of 2016. So it is slightly different than the eligible uses for our rollover bonds. You've seen this chart before. We've seen year-over-year growth for every month since the passage and collection of WC1 revenues, except for 2 months at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So we've seen very strong growth of this revenue as well. And this chart, again, shows you kind of the coverage on that debt. In fiscal year 23, as I told you in the CIP presentation, we've been very conservative about the level of sales tax revenues we'll budget. We're assuming 0% growth, actually, over what we estimated for fiscal year 2022. We'll see about a recession and other bad things that may happen, but so we felt like being conservative made the most sense. And as you can see, our total debt service for fiscal year 23 is only $32 million. So as we talked about during the CIP process, the difference is used for pay-as-you-go projects, whether that's design of school facilities that we pay on a cash basis ahead of a bond issuance, or in the case of several of our elementary schools, we pay for them with cash. So we let that cash build up, and then as we can, we pay for any new school facilities on a pay-as-you-go basis to avoid interest costs. And so again, here's a chart comparing debt service to our actual projected revenues. And for both of those charts, we haven't assumed any growth in revenues at all. So you can see coverage is strong. As we talked about in the CIP, we always want to preserve some capacity for growth-dependent schools. So when there is growth in outlying communities, whether it's Cold Springs or South Reno or wherever it is, we want to preserve some capacity to issue new debt to build new schools for those communities. And so you can see we've got certainly that capacity. And then our last type of debt are medium-term bonds, and that's a term specific to state law, and that simply means any debt that has a term of less than 10 years or any installment purchase agreements we may have with a vendor, like for copiers or print shop equipment. We use medium-term bonds to have kind of a rolling financing plan to buy buses and other white fleet. And we pay for that currently out of our government services tax capital fund, not the general fund. And then here we again compare our general services tax revenues, which are in excess of $6 million, against outstanding debt service, which will be less than $2 million in fiscal year 23. So again, very strong coverage. And this again is a chart just showing that. So I should have said this is the presentation we'll be giving to our Debt Management Commission. I wanted to share this with you. Another measure of debt affordability or debt capacity is based on the assessed value of properties in the county, which is significant. So we are allowed to issue up to 15% of total assessed value in the county, or $3.2 billion. As we shared, we have a little over $1 billion, so that gives us the capacity legally to issue another $2 billion. By virtue of the $298.515 million we're asking you to authorize, we'd end up with remaining authority to issue $1.8 billion, roughly. So as debt rolls off, that increases our remaining capacity. But again, the point is to show that we're far under what we legally are authorized to issue. And then a secondary kind of metric where that we measure ourselves and we report to the Debt Management Commission on our debt per capita, or debt on an assessed value basis. And so we're shown in 2 green bars, again, because we have a separate revenue source to pay for new debt, and that's WC1. Unlike any other school district, we do have higher debt levels than almost any other school district. But so the first green row that we've highlighted excludes out WC1 debt, just to have an apples to apples comparison of our rollover debt to other agencies. And you can see we're in line with Clark County School District and Churchill County School District and a few other school districts as well. So again, just different metrics where we look at, again, our capacity and affordability to issue new debt. We're not sticking out, except for the fact that, again, we have a dedicated different revenue source that no other county school district has, which is WC1, thanks to voters. This provides you with a summary of what we have issued since WC1. Between WC1 bonds and rollover bonds, we've issued just shy of $800 million of debt. So it has been, again, a significant commitment of our resources, but you can see there what we've done with those resources, and that that table doesn't include pay-as-you-go projects like Bohatch Elementary and J. Woodrow Elementary. That's in process. So we've certainly been aggressive in terms of getting capital projects done, as you just saw when we did the Public Works Week. They've been very busy, extremely busy, building new schools, and we finance that through long-term debt. And because that's the only way we could. To wait for monies to roll on a pay-as-you-go basis, we might have been able to afford a couple schools at this point versus 8. So, you know, this has all been contemplated when the PSORN committee brought this vote to voters, and so we're just, executing on the plan. I think we're ahead of the curve in terms of those new school facilities, which again means we can now pivot and toggle over to core schools in our core areas. So we will continue kind of that plan. You heard about a modernization study that we're currently in the RFP process for that will outline what those reconstruction projects will look like over the next 5 years, and we'll use debt to finance whether it's a complete reconstruction like we did at O'Brien at other locations, or whether there's just major upgrades like we've done at Swope Elementary. Those will all be laid out to you in that modernization study. And then again, we have significant capacity to issue debt to fund those improvements. So again, some may call that kind of a dry presentation, but I wanted to at least cover our long-term debt. Again, you don't see numbers often in the billions, and so That's the case here, $1 billion worth of debt, and we wanted to, again, remind you of all those facts, but I'm certainly happy to take any questions, but we look forward to your approval of this resolution. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mather. Why don't we have some public comment on this, JJ? If we do, we'll take it first. No public comment on this item? Okay, we'll bring it here. I'll start with a question. And you did speak a little bit about this, but I just want to make sure that that we cover it and that it wasn't missed. Your level of comfort based upon the volatility right now in the economic environment, in our country. Talk a little bit more about your level of comfort with this additional, resource allocation that we're looking at, and with it and our ability to still stay in good financial.
That's a very good question. Absolutely. Thank you. We are concerned about the volatility of sales taxes, which fund our WC1 debt. We're up 15%, which means to me we could go down 15% just as easily. Mm-hmm. And so we're always mindful of that. We did a number of scenarios last year or 2 years ago, as well as last year, based on COVID. We thought we would see more of a pullback in the economy due to COVID, and instead, with all the federal stimulus dollars, we've seen just a real tremendous increase in spending by consumers. But with gas prices and inflation where they're at, we think there will be a pullback in some areas of the economy. We hear the term a lot, demand destruction, which means, right, you've got less money that based on how much you pay at the pump and how much you pay for groceries, for other things like Netflix, for instance. So you saw Netflix kind of see its subscribers decline. We think we'll see more of that. The Fed's also looking at raising interest rates over the next year and a half, and that's done to suppress inflation, but it also carries the risk of generating a recession. So we do model that. Again, that's why we're not assuming any growth in sales tax for fiscal year 23. We might see a decrease, but again, we've got reserves of $75 million to pay our debt, which is, truly significant, and we're nowhere near spending that amount in debt service for WC1 bonds. And so kind of internally, informally, we like to have at least a 20 to 25% buffer of coverage on our WC1 debt. So in other words, our revenues could fall 20 to 25%, and we still have enough to pay our debt service. So that's kind of an informal internal buffer we have. All of these kind of considerations are things the rating agencies look at, and which is why we're a AA rated credit. They feel good about kind of our ability to manage our debt within kind of the parameters we've set with you. So they're comfortable with our level of debt as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mather. Other questions? Dr. Nicolette?
Thank you. This will definitely help prepare me for the Debt Management Commission meeting, and I'm sure we'll meet beforehand.
I'm sure we will.
The modernization study, can you tell us a little more about that and when we can expect to see that?
The RFPs hit the streets. It may have actually already closed. I don't know if Adam is here still. So Adam would be actually the better person to speak to this.
I'd be happy to take a stab at that. For the record, Adam Searcy again. The RFP solicitation period has closed. We'll be reviewing proposals for the next month or so and anticipate bringing an agreement to the board sometime likely in July. And then really throughout this fall is when the community and the board should expect to be engaged in the analysis and the discussion process, and ultimately coming back to the board for approval likely in the beginning of next calendar year. So February 2023 is what the schedule projects as far as a recommended conclusion for that engagement.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Vice President Nicolette. Other questions, comments? This is something that is an action item to look forward to. This. Trustee Smith, I see you leaning. Oh, no, you weren't leaning. My bad. Other questions? You're leaning
I can,
now.
though.
Okay.
I'm leaning now.
You can lean, and then...
All right.
Okay.
Well, I'm more than happy to go ahead and... Do we have any... We're good with public comment and all that?
Yeah, we did public comment
Okay.
already, and... Okay, I think we're good.
All right. All right. I move that the Board of Trustees adopts Washoe County School District Board Resolution 22005, a resolution to notify the Oversight Panel for School Facilities and Washoe County Debt Management Commission regarding the proposed issuance of up to $298,515,000 in general obligation bonds in one series or more, and authorizing officers of the district to take other actions necessary to complete the issuance and related matters.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Rodriguez. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Okay, the motion carries. Let the record show that it is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Mather. I really appreciate your management of those kinds of dollars. Wow.
And it was exciting, Mark. It was very exciting.
Definitely exciting. Okay. We're on agenda item 3.05. All right. Washoe County School District Strategic Plan Bridge Year Reporting of Metrics from the 2020 through 2021 school year related to the following goals and possible action to provide direction to update or revise associated 2021 to 2022 school year response to recovery measurable outcomes as needed. Goal 2, to develop and retain highly effective personnel who are driven to support students and their academic success, as well as success of the district. I'm going to turn it over, starting with you, Dr. McNeil.
Thank you very much, President Taylor, members of the board. We are pleased to continue our strategic plan reporting. Just as a reminder, these are for metrics for the 2021 school year, and we are going to be focusing around Goal 2 today. So you have Miss Emily Ellison, our Chief Human Resources Officer, and I see her amazing A-team back there as well, too. So I will turn it over to Emily.
Thank you, Dr. McNeil. Thank you, President Taylor, members of the board. Emily Ellison, Chief Human Resources Officer for the record. I think it's fair to comment briefly on the placement of my item, though. It's good that I got to follow the dry presentation, but...
Ouch! Yikes! Yikes!
But you're welcome, LT colleagues, because our boss is here watching. Okay, anyway.
Okay.
I did bring the A-team with me. I have several of my colleagues are here from the Human Resources Department, and if I leave out anything important or don't know the answer to something, they're going to jump up here to the podium and add in as we move along. So that said, Goal 2 is all about the people, right? Highly effective employees, and it's those folks that support the success of our students. So do we have enough? Are they effective? And are we able to retain them, right? Is kind of the high-level summary of Goal 2. Within Objective 2.1, you'll see a number of metrics tied to attracting, recruiting, hiring, and retaining highly effective personnel. So we'll dive into that. 2.1.1 is decreasing the number of positions that remain unfilled on the first day of school each year by at least 2%. So a couple of things that I want to say about this information. The first is that it's true vacancies. So these are positions that have been allocated for that as of on the first day of school for the 2021 school year, we had not identified a contract hire for. The reason that we count other types of hires in those roles, even though their contract might be official yet, is because folks are at various stages of licensure, various stages of program attainment for ARL, that sort of thing. So there are teachers in those positions, but this number reflects true vacancies. And the first day really gives us kind of a snapshot in time. So I think that one of the things that I always like to remind people is, even though we feel like this is really fixed, right? School starts and you have your teacher and that's your teacher for the whole year. There is still some change and fluctuation because we have 8,000 people that work for us, and life circumstances can change. And so the first day of school metric provides us, again, a snapshot for that first day of school. But I think what you'll see as we continue to talk about these metrics and what the next iteration of the strategic plan looks like, there are probably other ways that we could look at this information that would tell a more complete story. So You see here that we had a downward trend for many years. 19 and 20 were difficult in terms of timing of legislative allocations and that sort of thing, but we're headed back in the right direction with 58 for the 2021 school year. And spoiler alert, it was better again in 21-22. So I like to report on this metric, but I also don't want to paint a false picture, right? Because we know that staffing and vacancies are still a challenge. I'm just going to keep going, and then you just tell me to stop if you want me to. So as we think about recruiting, and this is specific to certified employees, so classroom teachers, social workers, counselors, et cetera, one of the other challenges, if you will, or kind of factors that we're always trying to delicately balance is, enrollment and allocations. And so I know that we probably instinctively think, well, the goal should be 0 unfilled positions on the first day, but we are very diligent, our principals are very diligent in managing hires to enrollment. And so if they have a first grade position, for example, that they've been allocated, but the enrollment is not materializing in the way they feel that it normally would, they might hold on filling that position until they get more comfortable, so that we don't create a situation where teachers have to be moved in the fall. And so there's really a delicate balancing act. The other thing that we've experienced the last couple of years because of decreases in enrollment and obviously concerns about funding and the impacts of COVID and all of those things, we transitioned to 1-year only contracts for our new hires. And the reason that we did that, again, was so that we don't get into a situation where if enrollment contracts, we then have to do a reduction in force. So what we're doing is bringing in most areas, there are a few that we always have positions, math, science, special ed, where we're doing standard contracts. But in many areas, we're doing 1-year only contracts so that we don't end up in a situation where eventually we have too many teachers and not enough positions. So now that impacts recruiting and retention, of course, right? And it impacts morale. And so it's something that we're really conscious of and very aware of. It's not anyone's preference. I mean, aside from the emotional consequences, the logistic consequences are also significant. But again, these are just some of the things that we're sort of weighing and balancing as we're trying to move through these metrics. 2.1.2 is focused on increasing the diversity of new hires among all employee groups. You'll notice that diversity is more than just race. Ethnicity, gender, language, veteran status, those are all ways that we can make our workplace more diverse. And this is an important metric for a lot of reasons. There's a substantial body of research that shows that when our educators look like the kids that we serve, there are better outcomes for the children. And then in organizations in general, there's a lot of research about diversity of thought and perspective and how it leads to better organizational performance. So this is something that we continue to work towards. I meant to move that goal conflicts with retention goals over to areas of success, because we actually did make a change to this in the response to recovery. We used to measure, the language said increase the diversity of the workforce or something like that. But that conflicted with our retention goal, right? Because if you're retaining people, you can't make the people you're hanging on to more diverse. So what we can control is our recruiting efforts and our outreach to diverse communities in order to fill new hire positions. We had a pretty substantial jump in the 2021 school year, and that's really a function of math. So the number of employees that indicated that they met one of those diversity categories increased, and the number of new hires decreased. So the denominator went up and the denominator went down and the numerator went up. And so I think this is another example of, as we think about strategic planning moving forward, we want to make sure that we're measuring things that tell the whole story, right? And this is a great increase, but I would hate for anyone to walk away and go, wow, WCSD got 10% more diverse in 1 year. That's not what we're saying here. let's see. Community partnerships have been really essential to this work and in connecting to the broader community, because I think everybody knows about us as a school system, but I don't think everybody thinks about us as an employer. And so that's the charge of my office and my team, right, is making sure that our brand as an employer is well established out there, and that we're connecting to the families and citizens that support our kids. The only other things I would caution when you're thinking about this kind of data is, obviously, it's self-reported. And so there are many reasons why someone may choose or not choose to disclose that information as a part of the hiring process. So there's always going to be a little bit of noise in the data. And then, again, goals that are focused on percentage increase make it seem like there's an outsized change, a bigger change than there was. So pleased to have met the objective and pleased to see the positive direction, but also don't want to overstate the total impact that it's had. 2.1.3 is a goal focused on the number or percentage of certified new hires who come from our education support professionals and guest teacher staff each year. And so this goal really reflects our belief in and our commitment to career pathway opportunities and to grow your own strategies. Excuse me. And I apologize, I have another boo-boo here. The target is supposed to say 59.6 for 2021. So you can see that we remained flat from 1920 to 2021. You can see from that 16-17 number that our alternative route to licensure program has really helped to bolster this effort. Many people that go through our program are current employees, and I like to promote our program as a niche program that really best fits support professionals and guest teachers versus career changers, because they're already part of our system, they're already part of our culture, they know our expectations, and so there's been some really cool transition stories of paraprofessionals taking over for the teacher in a strategies classroom, for example, when the teacher retires. So let's see. Any questions thus far? Okay. So now, getting into alternative route to licensure a little bit, this goal is focused on the percentage of individuals who participate in that program who are focused on attaining special education licensure. So just for a little bit of history and knowledge of the alternative route to licensure program, we were approved as a provider in the 2015-16 school year. And then 2016, we had a small cohort during that year. Then we really kind of got things dialed in. And then since 16-17, we've had probably 75 or so people go through our program each year. And many of those folks get hired onto contract with us. So for a long time, we were measuring how many people came into the ARL program and then how many finished and completed the program so that they got a contract offer and they got a standard license and all of that. We worked really hard to refine our screening process and sort of change the order of operations so that the fallout rate, if you will, of people accepted into the program is very minimal. We give a lot of opportunities for people to really decide whether or not it's for them. And so we transition from monitoring program completers to monitoring who are we filling our ARL program with. Because that's the other thing that we have to look to when we're thinking about our ARL cohorts. We are only a provider for our high need areas, so we can certify folks in special education, math, science, early childhood, music, foreign language. I'm probably forgetting one and they'll stand up and tell us. But so we focus on our high needs areas, right? Because there's not a lot of sense in churning out social studies teachers when there's plenty of universities to do that. And then within the program, we want to make sure that our participants have a good experience, right? They're investing a lot of time and energy in making this happen, and so we want to make sure that they're successful during their pre-service requirements and that then they can get hired into a contract position. So we look carefully to determine, where is the need? It doesn't make a lot of sense to fill up, elementary was the one I forgot, sorry. It doesn't make a lot of sense to fill up an entire cohort with elementary, even though we know in the past we have needed elementary teachers, and elementary teachers certainly can come into our organization through ARL, but we know that the greater need is in special education. And so this metric helps us to focus our recruiting efforts on individuals who can occupy seats and then come away with special education licensure. We have to be careful though, right? We want to make sure that we recruit people who can be successful in those positions. And so you'll note that one of the barriers that we have here is that special education alternative route can be challenging if you are not coming from another type of educational setting, right? So if you are an accountant at IGT and you want to become a special education teacher, I love that and I want to help you find the way to do that, but I'm not quite sure that our program is the right program based on the way that it's structured. There's also intensive program requirements, and with licensure, the licensure is a little bit less flexible or portable, if you will, in terms of being able to add on endorsements and that sort of thing. And so we never want people to say, okay, I'm going to get into ARL and I'll do special ed because I know you really want me to. We want you to be in ARL to teach what you want to teach, but we want to make sure that within our ARL cohorts, we have enough special education teachers. So this is an important goal.
So if I may, I'm going to jump in just for a
Yes,
little clarity on
please.
this. So it isn't that we're going to turn someone away per se.
Correct.
Right, that would be a really good ARL candidate, but it's really the area of focus is where we have our greatest area of need.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Exactly. And
Okay.
so when we do our information sessions, we talk a lot about that, right? We want you to go into the profession in an area that you're comfortable in, excited about, all of those things. But we also want you to understand what the employment prospects look like, because I don't want to get into a situation where people feel like they've been, tricked by us or something. And so, like I said, it's a real careful balancing act of looking at each cohort's results to determine, were these folks successful in securing positions? And if not, why? And, how do we make that experience mutually beneficial? So.
Okay. Thank you. I see Trustee Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Is this a good point for questions or?
Sure. At this one, absolutely.
Ask as you go? Okay.
Mhm.
All right, well, I'm a little behind. On slide 6, I just kind of want to go back to the one-year contracts.
Sure.
Who are we trying to recruit with the one-year contract?
This metric is focused on our certified employees, so our classroom teachers. We have designated certain positions that are hard to fill so here's the punchline. At the end of the year, when we reallocate based on enrollment, I'm trying to minimize the number of people that we're overaging, right? And so when I think about particularly elementary, we've provided ESSER's funding for our building learning facilitators. And so we have 65 elementary schools? 68 elementary schools. So I know for sure I have 68 building learning facilitators in positions that are on a limited funding source. I have to make sure that those folks have spots to come back to. So I can't keep bringing new standard contracts into the organization in areas where I'm not sure that natural attrition will create enough spots for the new people to have standard contracts. Now, I absolutely appreciate the impact that has on people, right? You feel like you're not being invested in and they don't want me and all of that. But it's really, unfortunately, it's kind of a pick your poison decision, right? Because it's take your chances and perhaps get into a situation where now you have to do a reduction in force, or utilize one-year only contracts until we feel like we have a comfort level that fluctuations in enrollment or funding won't be so significant that we can't absorb them.
Okay, and I appreciate that, Ms. Elson, I really do. However, there's a statement that was made, don't want to have too many teachers. I just can't think we'll ever have too many teachers. So what about a 2-year contract? I think that'd be a little bit more appealing to someone, hey, at least that's 2 birthdays, 2 Christmases. have you guys explored that? And if so, why not look at that?
So, there are some logistics issues. My preference would be to get away from limited contracts in general versus creating a new limited contract type. So what we're doing is looking at every subject area and grade level and where we can feel comfortable that, you know, the number of positions that we have will accommodate the number of people that we have who have licensure in that area. That's the other really sticky wicket here is, you know, not all teachers can teach everything. And so early childhood is an example, right? We hadn't previously designated that as one of the areas that would be exempted from the 1 year only contracts. However, in looking at the mix of allocations and employees on standard contracts, I think that is an area where we could make that change. And so kind of one at a time, as we get a comfort level that we would be able to absorb any major changes, I'm looking to just get away from 1 year only as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rodriguez. I think that's a good question. Of course, I know you aren't saying we have too many teachers. That isn't it. But in terms of teachers in the right positions, you know, where they're licensed to teach and where we make sure that those teachers who are on special assignment or projects, that they have a place to come back to.
Yes.
And then we aren't overaging people, because we know the overage situation is then you may land anywhere, and that's really, really bad for morale. So it's a difficult balance. I like the commitment to how do we get away from it altogether. As much as we can. I'll ask you this just to piggyback. Have you noticed the 1 year contract being a barrier in recruiting, or how much of a barrier, perhaps, is a better question?
Well, I think that geographically we have some advantages that, you know, this is not like Southern California where people commute long distances as a matter of day-to-day life, right? And so there's sort of a mental hurdle that you have to overcome to decide, I live in Washoe County, but I'm going to go teach in Lyon or Story or wherever. And so I think that that benefit has helped to offset some of what I think would be the impacts of 1 year only contracts if we lived in a larger metropolitan area, right? I think that in terms of, are there people declining an offer from us to accept a standard contract somewhere else? That's probably more of a function of our hiring timeline and the fact that the rurals are able to hire so much earlier. Mm-hmm. So even when we had standard contracts and we weren't doing 1 year only contracts, obviously there's a lot less movement and things that have to happen in the rurals. And so they're able to begin hiring external candidates usually 3 to 4 weeks before we are.
I've actually heard that before. So,
Yeah.
and actually we may even have chatted about it, about just sometimes it just takes longer. So you're that teacher and you don't know if and you're probably going to get an offer because we need teachers, dang it. But it's so hard when you know you have something in your hand,
Yeah.
right, from somewhere else.
And the other thing that we've done to try and help support these folks is, so once the overages are placed and all of the standard contracts are taken care of, normally then we would open to the hiring pools. We actually are going to do that 1 week later, and we've created a special OYO transfer period. And so two things.
OYO?
Oh, 1 year only.
Okay. Sorry.
And so we've done two things to try and support them. So there'll be that dedicated transfer period. So before anyone who's external to the organization gets a shot at any position, they would get a shot at it first. And then we also wanted to support our administrators in not having to repost, re-interview, and say, Angie, I'd like you to come back for a second year. So what we are doing is automatically extending. So if Kristen is in a second grade position and it survives overage at her school and she was effective or highly effective on her evaluation this year, we're just auto-renewing those positions once we've gotten all of the overages taken care of. So.
Well, thank you for being creative in ways that you can help take some of the sting out of that, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
The lack of security, and really the commitment to get rid of that altogether.
Yeah.
I think all of it, just especially in this market, right? You know that. Trustee Smith. Oh, Trustee Mandela was next, and then Trustee Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. So, but a 1 year only can be extended to another 1 year only. For, do we know for how long?
So it's my understanding that way back when we only did 1 year only contracts, and then it just went on forever, and it's very administratively cumbersome, and so we went away from that at some point. So I don't think there's any sort of I'm unaware of any sort of statutory limit or anything like that, but of course there is the interplay between contract length and then post probationary status, right? So. Mm-hmm.
Trustee Smith?
Thank you, President Taylor. I'm really glad to hear that we're trying to get away from the 1 year only, which makes sense why we have to do it. And I don't know if this is accurate or not, but some of the feedback also was that if a teacher was in a 1 year only contract, then they may not get that role again because of the way seniority and priority comes into play. So I know that that's a factor, and then that's been difficult when schools and students bond with a teacher that's doing really well, but because of the nature with 1 year only contracts, that can kind of create changes. The example that I'm referring to specifically is at Jesse Beck with their dual language program that's there, but I'm really glad to hear that we're trying to grow away from that, and so I'm really grateful that you already have your sights on that. Yeah. Thank you.
Superintendent?
Thank you very much. So as a former 1 year only teacher twice over, I absolutely understand this, and that's what Emily was talking about, because I actually was one of the consistent 1 year only teachers. So I absolutely understand, what this means, and it's never pleasant to receive that letter, and thank you for your service. But the other point, the other part of that is that you all have seen the trends in enrollment, and so Emily, and working with our budget staff, working to be conservative, because the last thing that we want to do then is to overextend and have to do a RIF, which would not be.
Explain RIF for the public.
That is when we have to do a reduction in force, and we have worked very, very hard over the years. And then I will also say, having a every 2 year legislature puts additional stressors when we're not quite sure what our funding is going to be, and there's not too much that we can play with around that right now. But those are going to be some of the things that need to look at into the future, as far as the biennial legislature session, and then also the enrollment.
Yeah,
as well.
I think I'd like to just add two things. For the RIF and then also the legislative session. I think that RIF clarification is important, because while the overage process affects individual schools that enrollment is changing at, the RIF process would affect the entirety of the bargaining unit. And so when I think about the potential impacts, right, and the scope of the blast radius, if you will, I don't like it. I want to get away from it as soon as we possibly can, but I also really want to avoid any situation where we are having to do an organization-wide RIF, because then it's touching everyone. So the other thing I would say about the legislative session is that is a really important point, and you'll see that jump from 1819 to 1920, that first day vacancy jump. That was a result of a legislative appropriation for funding for learning strategists about 2 weeks before school started. So we threw up 65 positions on the board right before the start of school, and experienced teachers went into those and did great work, but then we ended up not having a lower number that year. So it really does have an impact.
It's a big challenge to balance that, but
yeah.
RIF is something we certainly want to avoid. Overages aren't that great either. It's the downside of it, right?
Yeah.
As we're still in this place where we are. So,
and I think too, and we've talked a little bit about this before, but the work that we've been doing between the Office of School Leadership, Human Resources, and the Business Office to continually monitor enrollment and allocations, and to strategize about how to address those variances, and to hold off on filling something if we don't think the enrollment's going to materialize, or go ahead and give the allocation if we think it's going to. I think that we're just fine-tuning every year kind of the science, right, of allocating for school staff. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Why don't we go ahead?
I don't remember where I left off. Okay.
I was going to say,
Very
yeah,
good.
because
Okay.
Trustee Rodriguez took us back, so we'll.
So we were on 2.14, and so we talked about special education, and our focus is on special education because we know we need special education teachers. So objective 2.2 is really around professional learning and capacity building. And so 2.21 is maintain the percentage of licensed staff engaged through the professional growth system platform. So for those that don't know, MyPGS is the tool that the district implemented a number of years ago. It houses our evaluation system, and it also stores all of our professional learning opportunities. And so we've had in many years high engagement in terms of the number of certified or licensed staff that are taking advantage of a professional learning opportunity through the professional growth system platform. We changed the goal in, I want to say 2019, it might have been 2018, to reflect maintaining the percentage versus increasing the percentage because there were some regulatory changes that expanded the types of things that would count for continuing education credit for license holders, right? So we were at 96%, 2017-18 baseline. People have to renew their license. They're probably going to go to PGS to get that credit. We saw a little bit of a dip and are settling, I think, around the 90% range because, again, there's things that you can do beyond professional learning courses to qualify for some of those continuing education credits. I think as we look to not only the next objective, but to strategic planning moving forward, I think this goal will transition away from our adoption, right? We were implementing the system and we want to make sure people were using it and getting familiar with it and really transition towards trying to figure out ways that we can measure the impact that those opportunities are having. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but that's...
Makes sense, though.
All right. The next goal is very closely aligned and is focused on increasing the percentage of professional learning course owners who finalize the course and send out the post-course survey. So we want to continue to increase that number. Obviously, it provides us a mechanism to gather feedback and to do benchmarking across professional learning opportunities that can be very, very different. Obviously, that's an opportunity to inform future professional learning. On the flip side of that, many course creators or course owners also want to have a course-specific survey, right? Because they're looking for really specific information. And so, again, kind of a delicate balancing act of we want to have some standardized data that we can look to understand impacts, but also I definitely see the value in, at the course level, wanting to understand different measures. So, all right. And now we transition to retention and engagement. So 2.3.1 is increasing teacher retention over the first 5 years of employment. And we look at this in a cohort methodology. So the percentage that you see there, 70.3%, reflects the percentage of new hires from the last 5 years who started school with us in the 21-22 school year. So if, for example, here's the specific numbers, we had 1,841 new hires over the last 5 years, which was the 2016-17 school year through the 2021 school year, and 1,294 of them finished 5 years and started the 6th year. So one group is always falling off and one group is coming on, but that's really kind of the best way that we determined to capture this 5-year metric without having lots and lots of data. But I think some of the successes are that nationally the estimates are around 60 to 65% teacher retention over the first 5 years of employment. So we're trending a little bit better, but we know this is still an area of opportunity.
You said the national number, I'm sorry, was that 60, 65?
Yeah. Yep, for the first 5 years. There are many, many factors that influence whether or not an employee decides to stay with us. And this is always kind of a funny one to report on because I am the collector and keeper of the data, but at least to my knowledge, I don't think anyone has left recently exclusively because of human resources. So we all play a role in retaining our employees. And, I think the thing that I would like to stress here, and this speaks to really all of my metrics, is if you're an employee and you're deciding whether to go or to stay, that's going to be based on a lot of data points, right? It's likely not going to be just one interaction. It's going to be based on organizational culture. It's going to be based on series of interactions. It's going to be based on policies that we do or don't have and that we do or don't adhere to. There are a lot of things that go into whether or not someone stays. And I just want to underscore the role that every single one of us plays in retention and in recruiting. I would never suggest that we, paint a sunshine and rainbows narrative that's not true, but also I can say definitively that when the dominating narrative is bad, 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 negative, 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 that's very challenging. That's very challenging to be a part of. It's very challenging to look at and say, I want to join that.
That's real.
And I think we all need to understand the role that we play, and every interaction contributes to whether or not an employee is going to remain with us or decide to go somewhere else. Because we're in an extremely competitive labor market, and we're not competing with the other school districts. We're competing with basically everyone at this point.
I think that's real. I'm sorry.
Please.
I see a couple of trustees. I'll go. Thank you for bringing that up because I think it's an important conversation for us to have. So we'll go to Trustee Mayberry, then Trustee Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, Ms. Ellison. A question for you. Do we do any kind of exit interviews with teachers and other staff as they leave? And if we don't, should we, do you think?
We do. So we have a process for that. We get about a 20% response rate. There are definitely times and areas where it's appropriate to dig a little bit deeper into that. And so, for example, transportation, right? We do exit surveys, and they would be included in that as well.
And not to interrupt you, but the surveys as in written surveys, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, they're electronic surveys. And so in order to dig a little bit deeper into that data, we've also had situations or projects where my HR staff have then followed up with phone calls to the people that left. So maybe we didn't get the electronic response, but we know we've got, a particular area of concern or a hot spot, and then we've made outreach calls to try and bolster the amount and detail of the data that we have.
That's fair. Is that teachers as well? Okay, departing teachers. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Now, I don't want to oversell that happens with every single group every single time, right? Most people get an electronic survey, but if we notice a particularly problematic trend, right? Are we having particularly high turnover in one department or in one school or in one grade level or something like that? Then we would utilize some resources to dig a little bit deeper.
Thank you, Trustee Mayberry. You said the vast majority of people, but we miss some people sometimes as they leave in terms of them getting us. I know we can't make people take the survey.
Exactly.
On the next, I'm certainly aware of that. And a lot of times when people are leaving, it's like, okay, bye. I'm on to my next page, my next chapter, and certainly understandable. But I appreciate their follow-up phone calls and the effort to try to get the feedback. Yeah. So we can learn some information from that. Trustee Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. And I know Trustee Smith and I we've talked about that exit interviews, and as before Trustee Mayberry was on the board. So thank you for that. Do you also do retirees as well?
Like interviews?
Yes, yeah, for exit interviews for our retirees, or.
So they get the electronic survey because they show as a separation in the system. But no, I have not been able to invest any resources in following up with retirees at this point.
Is that something that we could look at exploring? Because I think that'd be a whole bunch of truth there in 20, 30 years for someone. I mean, I think that'd be an outstanding source of information there.
Yeah, I mean, we are data rich for sure, right? It's just mining it and putting it to use. I do think that they are a valuable source of information. I also think that you'll hear a lot of talk about this, right? Stay interviews. So employees that have been here a long time, why are they staying? The ones that are most active and most engaged, what makes you that way, right?
No, I would agree, and kind of just refocus. Like, I think that'd be great to look at our retirees as well. Yeah. So, but no, I mean, we obviously want to know why people are staying, and obviously keep that going. But we are having people leave, and I think we really need to look at that. And I know you're doing those interviews, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rodriguez. I want to go back to something you said in terms of all of us that are part of the WCSD family and conversations that we're having and so on. I think it's, I've said this publicly a lot, and I think it's important to say it again. There are certainly areas that we know as a school district where we want to get better at some things. I mean, and we've had some really good candid conversations, and staff has presented some candid data like, hey, even now, hey, this we met, this we didn't meet. I mean, those kinds of things on the academic side and so on. And so we've said it before, and so I appreciate that staff has been doing that. So we can highlight, here's some areas, some opportunities that we have, right? But I also think it's important, we can't just talk about what's wrong, we have to talk about what's strong. And there are a lot of strong things about this district, and that's the message that doesn't get out enough. We don't talk about enough. It isn't resonating enough. So then it's the picture of, hey, this is what we have to work on. This is what's wrong. And man, there's just a whole lot more that's strong. Not because the wrong isn't something we need to work on, right, but this is something we can be proud of, and the pride around that, being more of the conversation around, I just think is critically important. Because if any of us are in a position when everything around you in terms of what you're doing is negative, it's taken away from you, it's demeaning, it's whatever, it's hard to show up.
Yeah.
And it's certainly hard to show up and be your best self in a very difficult situation anyway.
Exactly. When
it's been an unimaginable 2 years for so many of our employees, most if not all.
Absolutely.
Right? Dr. Nicolette.
Thank you for that, President Taylor, because I think without doubt we work through our strengths to fill our gaps. I mean, those strengths are already there and they're solid, and we have a pretty good idea why they're working. And we recognize what is working. I believe it's a lot, not easier, but it informs our areas of gaps and places we need to improve when we recognize our strengths. And so this is why I really like that you've got the areas of success and the barriers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Nicolette. Please, Ms. Ellison, go ahead.
Okay, great. So the next two metrics are new metrics that we've added in response to recovery, and really these are intended to provide some engagement metrics. So we have a wellness program at the district. There's an online platform that houses information related to employee participation and the health assessment, and you can have your labs drawn and uploaded into that, and it'll give you a lot of health and wellness information. And so our goal is to increase the number of employees engaging through the online platform by 5% annually. And so you can see that we were able to achieve that in the 2021 school year. We were with a different platform for many years, and then when we changed insurance providers, we had to change wellness platforms as well, and so that was a little bit bumpy, but overall the feedback has been trending in a very positive direction in terms of the ease of use of the platform, accessibility from mobile, ways that colleagues can engage in challenges together. And then we've just started, Laura Thurston, our benefits manager, and I have just started to work with Virgin Pulse, that's the name of the vendor that we use, to incorporate aggregate claims data into the wellness platform so that we can better inform wellness planning, right? So if we know, for example, that musculoskeletal issues are one of the primary costs to our insurance plan. Perhaps then, as we look toward wellness planning, then we focus our efforts on physical activity, or, you know, if it's diabetes, you know, whatever the data is showing us in terms of actual health outcomes, we can use that to inform our planning. And so I want to assure people that this is aggregate data. I don't have any information on who has what illnesses or what superpowers. But you'll note a barrier is certainly psychological barriers to participation. So some people feel uncomfortable having personal information in online platforms. Some people just don't want another app to use. Some people are just really overwhelmed by life right now. And one more thing, so there's a lot of things obviously that can create barriers here, but we do feel like we've got a really strong platform. We feel like we've got some really cool data that we can use to inform decision making moving forward. And we're both very excited about one day getting to a place where we can tie wellness initiatives to particular outcomes and, help our employees understand how to be good consumers of healthcare too, since we are all our own insurance provider. So. And then increase the number of employees engaging in wellness challenges. So this is a part of the wellness platform. A step challenge is a great example. So you can form a team, and then there's prizes for the teams that do the most walking and stepping. And I want to say it was like 2 million steps or something, the last team that won. But schools start competing with each other, and that's been kind of cool to see. And so we want to continue to see that level of participation and engagement continue to climb. Some of the barriers are much the same that I discussed before, but I think this is a cool thing that can inform some of our planning moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Ellison. I'm hoping too that as people kind of begin to look, not just be so surrounded by everything COVID, because it's been all things COVID for so long, and then begin to look at, okay, how do I begin to look forward and think of self-care and those things that participation will increase.
Absolutely.
Plus there are cool prizes in the challenges. I see them.
I think too, I worry a lot about deferred health care from the COVID period, right? We saw our claims experience dramatically decrease. And so what sort of preventative treatments have been missed? What sort of screenings have not happened? And so getting people into, kind of that wellness, again, be a good consumer of our healthcare mindset is super important. I'll give you an example, right? We're going to do a campaign around being a good consumer of healthcare, and when you're scheduling a surgery, you often have the option of going to one of the local hospitals or to an outpatient surgery center. And outpatient surgery centers tend to charge our plan about 50% less than the major hospitals do. And so for the employee, they're going to pay the same no matter what, because the plan is the plan. But if the cost that hits our plan, the claim we pay out, is double what it needed to be, then that's just eating away at the fund, and then we have to do rate increases and benefit changes to offset those increased expenses. So.
Thank you. Trustee Mayberry?
Thank you, Madam President. A few questions, rookie questions. I'm asking for a friend. So just help me out here. I'm not in the classroom, but I knew this at one time. But the ARL, the alternate
route to licensure.
Thank you. Can you define that for me, please?
Yes. So an ARL program, an alternative route to licensure, is just that. It is getting to the classroom some other means than graduate high school, go to college, become a teacher, go to the classroom, right? So every alternative route to licensure program looks a little bit different, though. And so when we created our program, we worked with the state and we said, here are the things that we will do in order to prepare people for the classroom. And then here are the things that they will do while they're in the classroom, kind of on-the-job training, in order to meet all of the requirements for full certification. So Ours is not actually an alternative to certification. Our folks still go through teacher prep coursework and the same coursework that is required of standard licensed teachers. They just do it in a different order. There are some programs that are completely customized. And so if you sign up with that organization, the Nevada Department of Education has approved their curriculum in essence and said, in lieu of these college classes, you can do this and then we'll license you.
So these are folks that are already maybe going into teaching as a second career, perhaps?
Yes. Yes, these are definitely career changers. I sometimes jokingly say career changers and all the philosophy majors.
Fair enough.
Hey, let the philosophy majors give them a break.
They make great teachers.
They do. They make great
teachers. And then on slide 12, 222, when we talk about professional growth systems, I mean, we've heard a lot about professional learning communities. Is this aligned with that? Or is this a different?
Good question. Good question.
So I'll start and then Emily can finish. So the professional growth system is really around targeted professional learning that our teachers, our certified staff can take. So it could be around classroom management.
Okay.
It could be around textbook adoption. It could be around multi-tiered systems of support. The professional learning communities are integrated into the school, and it's determined by grade level or by department. And it's really around student-centered progress.
Got it. So that they work hand in hand, but I mean the PLCs are one piece of the professional growth systems.
One piece.
Yeah. And then finally, the question I have is, and I get this a lot, where's the pipeline of new teachers? I mean, where do you see that coming with the loss of teachers not returning? Is there a pipeline here locally?
So the Grow Your Own programs that we talked about a little bit earlier, that's the pipeline. The narrative around education as a profession, that's been a challenge for many years. And so the number of people pursuing education degrees and teaching as a first profession has been declining year over year. And so in my mind, it's the career changers and the folks who come to the school district in one capacity and then realize they love serving children and want to grow. That's where the pipeline is at, which I think really makes it incumbent upon everyone to remove the barriers to higher education in order to be able to accomplish that, right? Because if the pool from which you're drawing is, historically it was high school graduates who were going to go to college and become teachers, if the pool now is career changers, the thinking about how they access higher education and whether or not funding a full 4-year program is attainable as a career changer and all of that, those are really important considerations.
Good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mayberry. Do we have any public comment on this item? Well, thank you, Ms. Ellison.
Thank you.
For the reports, for the metrics, and good work on those met. And I appreciate the conversation around those. That I love the way you put it. We have opportunities. There's some areas where we want to continue to get better, right? And some of it we can control, some of it we can't. But certainly, this influence those that we can.
Absolutely.
And I love the conversation around that. Dr. McNeil?
Thank you very much. And I just wanted, to thank Emily and her team who's sitting there quietly. So I'd like Kate Shum, Katie De Leon, Allie Kendrick, who just gave me a little smirk, and then Marissa McClish. Yes, I see you, Allie. If you all would please stand for the tremendous work that you all do for our 8,000 employees.
Thank you, Dr. McNeil. Trustee Church?
Thank you. I do have a few questions for Ms. Ellison. I'm confused on the part about the 1-year contracts, as was Trustee Rodriguez. Are we getting enough elementary school teachers? Are we have an overage in that area?
Yes, we do have I don't want to say teachers. I never want to say enough teachers. We need more teachers. But I don't believe that 1 year only contracts are preventing us from attracting teachers into these positions. I think that they have an impact on morale and engagement and are operationally really inefficient. But I don't think that they are. I don't think that we have vacancies as a function of that 1 year only contract.
But we do have. I'm still confused. We have vacancies at elementary level, or we K through 5, or we don't.
At any given time, I'm sure that we do have some vacancies. Yes.
Okay, and then you mentioned the fact that the rurals start before us. Can you explain that? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, absolutely. So the process begins with our district demographer, who I think probably right after school starts, we true up for count day, and then he starts the process again for the next year. And so he provides the estimates of enrollment by school, and then we work with the business office to make the allocations match those enrollment estimates. And then from there, we work with our association and with our principals to identify where staff movement needs to occur. And so if a school is gaining enrollment and needs an allocation, for example, then this is the period where those moves are made, and employees who are surplus, so enrollment declined at their school, would apply for transfer or be placed through the overage process. And so we've worked really, really hard to trim as much time as we can out of that process and to turn those numbers around as quickly as possible. But the advantage that the rurals have over us, of course, is just the size. I mean, it's just a much bigger number of people that we're talking about here. There are also contractual requirements in terms of timelines, and then spring break actually falls in the middle of the overage period every year, and so that lengthens the amount of time that the process takes as well, because we have a commitment to our employees to not be shuffling them around and making them interview over break.
It's troubling. It seems like the tail is wagging the dog, that the bureaucracy is preventing the hiring, and we're losing candidates to the rurals or elsewhere. Is it a problem, or am I misunderstanding? Can we fix it?
Trustee Church, this is Superintendent McNeil. So as Emily was explaining, it really has to do with the scale with our district. So we have over 4,500 teachers, and the rurals, as you know, 5 times smaller than we are. So it really has to do with the scale of the size, and then also we have to have this in our collective bargaining agreements. And so we work very closely with both WEA and WESPA on overages of that type.
Go ahead, Trustee Church.
Okay, and then just some comments. I've made them many times before, and I'll just kind of go over them very, very briefly. I still think that we should reach out to our wonderful University of Nevada at Reno, or those other folks down the road at UNLV, for research on this and many topics, such as recruiting and retention. And if not them, then any other university in the nation. I went to the prestigious San Diego State. They could look into it. I also think we need research into teacher housing. You saw me perk up when the governor mentioned that this land that you folks are on potentially would be used for their staff housing or student housing. I think we need to look into to that at some point. Again, it might be via research, UNR, UNLV, et cetera. The shortage of teachers as well as bus drivers and everything else is just troubling. I just really, really hope we could find a fix to it. And one thing I've suggested, and I'll do it one more time, is I think Reno's a wonderful area. We could host a nationwide conference on school staff recruiting and retention, and get some wonderful ideas from people nationwide on that subject. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Trustee Church. Trustee Smith?
Thank you, President Taylor. So for the 5 years when a teacher joins the district, and I know because we're data rich, so I know you're going to know the answer to this, not to put you on the spot, but we probably see where we start to drop off those new teachers over that 5-year arch. We don't have to be exhaustive, but do we have plans in place for identifying where those vulnerability points are and creating the type of supports or mentoring that they need to get through where we see those data vulnerabilities, to understand why our large group of people, like why are they getting to year 4 but they just don't get to year 5? I'm not expecting you to explain everything exhaustively, but do we have support plans in place to identify those vulnerabilities and strengthen them?
That's a great question. I'm glad that you asked that, because I actually corresponded with a teacher, I think it was through Dr. McNeil recently, who is a new teacher who came to the district, left after year 3, and then came back. And so she was providing some perspective on the new teacher experience. And it really is a delicate balancing act of interventions and overwhelm, right? And that's kind of what she was sharing. And so we certainly have in the past identified trends in year 1 and year 2. And so we've implemented a lot of supports for that. And so definitely I would attribute our success to, the consulting teacher support that Carol Gebhardt's group provides, and to the New Teacher Academy, and to the Master Lead Teacher Program, where we're working to build the capacity of the teachers who take student teachers, right? And so see the trend, implement the interventions, and I think now we have to really make sure that those interventions aren't necessarily overwhelming people, because this teacher mentioned, statutorily I get 3 additional observations, I have my evaluation, I have the 4 classes I have to do, I have the meetings with my mentors, and so all well-intentioned to try and find what's happening in the data and then address it, but then do you potentially create some unintended consequences? So that's the long way of saying yes, but there's still a lot of information in there for us to mine.
I love that. There's so much I love about that. And I would be remiss not to just add on to that why it's so important, not just for our new teachers, but for all teachers, to really be aware of what it is that we are requesting of them, requiring of them, making sure that those helps are not unintentionally causing harm or burning them out. And so that's always such an important thing about auditing what it is that we're requiring them to do. So that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. Looking to see if there's anywhere. This is an action item. We asked for public comment already, did we not? We did. Okay, thought so. This is an action item, and what we're looking for is to adopt we see updated metrics and the measurements from that. And remember, this is from the 2020-2021 school year, because obviously we're still in the middle of this school year, so we can't have metrics from this school year yet. That will be reviewed the following year. Then upcoming, as we bring on our new superintendent, that's when new targets for the year after that will be addressed at that time. So just make sure it's clear on what we're approving now and why it's a year behind, because we don't have metrics until the year's over. So again, looking for the pleasure of the board, we accept the metrics, the numbers that we've received. We had a great conversation. So looking, what's your pleasure? Okay, Clerk Ranella, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Nicolette. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Okay, let the record show it is the motion passes. Let the record show it is unanimous. 7-0. Thank you for your work, and thank you for again identifying there are some opportunities and some things that you're doing to work on it. I think it's clear we're all. So what can we do to help? Because we can't do what we do without teachers and nutrition services people and everybody else, and all you folks out there who didn't want to stand up when Kristen made you. Yes, Allie, we're talking about you, but you're retiring, so we don't care. All right, thank you so much. We're having it. We're actually yes when we get there, but it is unless I be accused of running a boot camp like former President Katie Simon Holland, we are going to have a dinner break at this point. because we have been here for a little bit over 2 hours and it's that time. So why don't we do, we're going to take a 20-minute break. Okay, and then we'll come on back and jump into our only remaining action item on the agenda, agenda item 3.01. Okay, we'll be back in about 20 minutes. Thank you, everybody. Let's go ahead. Thank you for your indulgence as we had a lovely salad for dinner. Appreciate that from staff. We will now continue on with our agenda item, the one that we reordered. The one that I presume, since I look up and see a whole lot of people from staff, wonder why that is. We're going to go on to agenda item 3.01. This is discussion and possible action to approve, modify, and or enter into written employment agreement, Superintendent of Schools, between the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees and Dr. Susan Infield on behalf of the Washoe County School District, pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute, which is NRS 391.110. And the presenters on this are going to be myself as the Board President, Dr. Nicolette as the Board Vice President, Board Counsel, Anthony Hall, and then Ms. Ellison from Human Resources as we jump into this item. And so as I begin, and then Ms. Ellison is going to take us through the contract and so on. Just want to say on behalf of myself and Dr. Nicolette, thank you to Mr. Hall, Counsel Hall, his contract expertise and experience that he brings to the board that was really, really helpful as we went through this and asked a lot of questions. And so we really appreciate that. And as you see, everyone before us, and as we sent out a draft copy of the contract that was took us every minute up to the time that we sent it out to just work through all of the many details and important pieces of the contract. And as we go through this, the way I've asked Ms. Ellison as a Chief HR Officer to just kind of walk us through it. As you know, as a board, we approved a draft template so that Dr. Bryan of the Bryan Group would have something to discuss and share with those candidates, especially those finalists, as a place for us to start. And we all voted unanimously to approve that. And for my colleagues, that's where we began our conversations and our negotiations with Ms. Infield's attorney. The way the negotiations went, we didn't all get in the room and so on and hash it out. Dr. Nicolette and I would meet with Mr. Hall, and then Mr. Hall would be in contact with Dr. Infield's attorney, and then they would meet. And then the attorneys will be the ones to go back and forth from a conversation standpoint, which is how we've done it in the past. So I've asked Ms. Ellison, before we go on, do you want to have anything you want to add before we jump in, Dr. Nicolette? And then you'll have an opportunity, Counsel. I've asked Ms. Ellison, take us through those things in the contract as negotiated that are different than the template that we approved as a place to start so that we can hit on those items as we go. And then Ms. Ellison has some research information in terms of some comparative things, some information that she got from Dr. Bryan as well. And then I've asked Mr. Hall if he would jump in anything pertaining to the negotiation or something he may have. We leaned upon his expertise often in terms of what he sees as he's negotiating public sector contracts and so on, so that we can answer all the questions and go forward. And after Ms. Ellison takes us through the contract, what we will do, why don't we do this? In fact, why don't we have public comment first, so that, because we want to be able to ask questions and have some conversation as we go, and that way we can hear whatever concerns or comments from the public as we start this off. Is that okay, JJ?
Yeah. Valerie Fiannaca.
Welcome, Ms. Fiannaca.
Thank you. I have a question, but I also have the answer. I don't usually answer my own questions, but today I'm gonna. Why would you sign a contract with a superintendent who has led for 10 years a district that is performing worse than Washoe County School District? This I found through publicly researchable information, and this despite a published article I'm sure several community members have written you about, titled Decentering Whiteness from Our American Schools, written within the last 6 months, that you know will cause conflict with the community, and even though she was not the first choice of the parents, students, or community focus groups. Answer, I believe 6 of you endorse her ideology.
Thank you, Ms. Fiannaca.
Casey Lynn Sutton.
Okay. Casey Lynn Sutton.
Melanie Sutton.
Okay, go ahead.
Pablo Nava Duran.
Welcome, Mr. Duran.
Good afternoon. So I'd like to say you picked me out something for a good reason. So it seemed like he supported parent choice during Worcester High School community member at a meeting. So I think that this is a reasonable that I do support the content of the $200 million because superintendent's a really hard job, and we want to keep a really hard job, and I want an inspector to be she will be our best, and also most of superintendent are the average superintendent for mostly school districts across America has only lasted 3 years. So I think 3 years is worth it. It's a natural effort, perfect way. Our salary is $210, so I think perfect. So if we lower that to $200, well, that will be fine. $200,000, that will be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Duran.
The board received emails from Richard Peterson, Joe Morabito, and Dinah Maher.
Thank you, JJ. Okay, so please, why don't we go ahead as described again. I went through how we'll go through the process. Thank you for the public comment, everyone. And we'll work through it, and then we'll ask questions as we go so we can discuss this as we get the presentation. Thank you, Ms. Ellison.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Emily Ellison, again for the record. If individuals are looking at the template contract and the new contract, I know when we had the original discussion, there was a lot of yellow fields to fill in. I'm not going to cover every place there was a yellow field because most of those were just name or date. So you'll obviously see within the document that information has been populated appropriately. If you look under Section 2, Section 3, that would be the first change from the template or addition to the template, indicating that the agreement is effective as of July 6, 2022, and the term of the agreement has been set at just less than 4 years, slated to end on June 30th, 2026. Section 5 delineates the compensation, and you'll see in Section A that the base pay negotiated is $310,000. And then within Section B, a deferred compensation or annuity section was added, providing for a monthly contribution of 8% to a qualified tax sheltered annuity or deferred compensation plan approved by the board. I believe the substantive change here was removal of performance bonus language and the addition of the deferred compensation or annuity language.
Something I want to just, if I may, in that is the deferred compensation is something that we did not have in Dr. McNeil's contract, and so it didn't carry over into the draft. It has been present in the previous 3 or 4 superintendent contracts, and so that's not an unusual type of thing. You also see it. We had a good time to have a conversation with Mr. Hall. It isn't unusual for CEOs, even public sector CEOs, to have additional funding in the retirement. I see you're leaning in, Mr. Hall. Thank you. Dr. Hall.
All right.
Dr. Hall.
Yeah, that is what my research found, is that this was very common in the public sector as well as my experience in the private sector. And I would also point out that this section, we cut the bonus provision and put this essentially in its stead. So Dr. Enfield did not negotiate for a bonus, so what was there was removed, and this was substituted.
Thank you, Council. Please, I just thought it was important to point that out.
No,
It was something
absolutely.
that was different. So,
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Within the fringe benefits section, the only substantive change is that the superintendent and the superintendent's spouse would
I'm
be
sorry,
covered.
Trustee Church has a question. Did I miss it? Did you have a question
I
on that,
do.
Trustee Church? I'm sorry. Please, go ahead.
Exactly. Pardon me. Does that include PERS?
No, that's separate from PERS. No, that's separate from PERS.
Do we still pay into PERS for the superintendent?
Yeah, it says it right here that PERS is, that's a state requirement. It's not, we can't not do PERS.
Thank you.
Picking up in section D, we did just want to make note that there's a minor typo, and the days of vacation is 22, not 20. So the numeric notation in the original draft is the correct number, and we'll make that editorial change in the final contract. Moving on to section G, the negotiated car allowance is $800 per month. And then section H added some information regarding relocation expenses and transition per diem, knowing that it was the board's desire to have some overlap time between the incoming and outgoing superintendent. The only other changes that I would point out, and I'm sorry, I have to look at my notes in the phone too. So within the termination section, Anthony, was it section 8 or section 9? Sorry.
Section 8.
Huh?
I believe you're looking for section 8.
I think you said 8, but that says evaluation of performance. So in section 9 under termination, there were some minor changes in the time period for termination without cause was increased. That's section C, 9C, was increased from 30 to 60 days notification period. And then in section D of that same termination clause, you'll notice that an item has been added, item 10, to the termination by board for cause, and that reflects the requirement to become a licensed administrator with the Nevada Department of Education, and added some language around that. And then in section E, termination by board due to the superintendent's disability, Anthony, your text said 12 to 9, but the document says 12. It used to be 9.
I thought we went 9. No, 10.
No,
it was 10.
That's right.
It was 10. It was 10.
Let me look at my notes here and get back to you on that. Let's circle back.
Okay, that's
this I
important.
believe was, yeah.
So the item that's being discussed is termination by the board due to superintendent's disability, and the language begins, it delineates that such disability lasts or exists for a period of 60 days within any consecutive. We need to make sure that we confirm what that number is for that period of time that would then qualify someone for termination due to disability. And those are the changes.
While Mr. Hall looks that up, it was 9 or 12 as we were getting down to some of the nitty gritty on this, as he looks to his notes to see what was agreed upon. This would be a good time for questions, comments, anything like that as we have a discussion on the board. Big contract, certainly. Big decisions here, so looking for questions, comments anywhere from any trustees at this time. While he finds his notes, sure, Trustee Smith.
Thank you, President Taylor. I appreciate the work that went into this, just to make sure that I'm tracking this correctly. The largest difference that I see is that in lieu of a bonus, we have a different form of compensation with the tax-deferred account. But otherwise, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm seeing here is very much well within the range that we've discussed not once but twice and voted on unanimously. Is my memory correct on that?
I would say the one other thing I might point out would be the 4-year versus 3-year, and that was something that excuse me, that, I mean, you're absolutely right from the TSA, but that was kind of a change, right? And I said we've had that in the past. Dr. Enfield had a larger amount where she is, so we met in the middle. That's how we landed where we landed from a negotiation standpoint. And then the 4-year. It doesn't change, of course, if we're looking down and then, board members change and come and go and so on. The same termination clauses happen. The same, if she decides she doesn't want to be, any of those things are still in place. But in our conversations, one of the things that we talked about was the need for consistency. And state law has a limit of 4 years, but the need for consistency as much as we can for that. So those are the big ones, quite honestly.
Absolutely. And just to stay on that, I see other lights, but for those of us who attended the trustee training last November for the Nevada Association of School Boards, they talked about the importance of having contracts that were, at least 3 years or 4 years, particularly for a new superintendent. We were trained on this by the national experts that they brought in, so I personally support that. Another thing that I see as it's a small change, but an important change, but I do want to state my specific support for it, is upping it to 60 days for termination without cause. I personally have no issue with that. And so I do recognize that that's a slight change, but it's one that I certainly feel is reasonable.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. Counsel, you ready yet? Not quite. Let me turn your light out then. Okay, Dr. Nicolette, it's okay.
Thank you. I would say the other piece in the contract that's worth noting is the relocation portion.
I'm sorry, I asked a question. Would you mind saying that again, Dr. Nicolette? I missed it.
Sure. Worth noting in the contract is the relocation addition.
And I will say as well, in that is the consideration. Remember the boards, something else that would be different. Our desire was to have someone start in June. And I believe we had a date that we wanted to be at the latest, and Dr. Enfield is unable to do that as she wraps up her duties as a sitting superintendent. But she has identified 10 opportunities when she will be able to come and spend time with Dr. McNeil and doing whatever they need to do. Whatever superintendents do during that time, so that there will be time for her to begin that learning and some of the transition conversations and those things. Not all of what we wanted, but certainly we appreciate her willingness to do that, and that's part of that relocation, as well. And then you move your family here and so on, and there's moving expenses and setup and whatnot. So it includes that as well.
Clarification on that, those 10 visits, is it 10 days or might those visits be a day and a half, 2 days? Is it 10 visits or 10 days?
I think it was 10 days. My understanding is 10 days. So so maybe one visit might be 2 days, and it was 10 days.
All right, I know this item is specifically on this contract, but I can't help but wonder, and if we can't talk about this, then you just tell me that. With Superintendent McNeil being our outgoing superintendent, is there a way for us to possibly engage with Superintendent McNeil if knowledge is needed from her? I'm not sure really what the professional courtesies are with that. I know it's related to this, but not specifically on the topic, so it's fine if we can't talk about it. But I do wonder if there is professional knowledge that Superintendent McNeil may be helpful with, is there a way for us to still get that with her in support of Superintendent Enfield?
You mean after June 30th?
Correct.
Yep. I think she's moving. No, I'm kidding. I think no, she's changing her number. She's moving. No, actually, Dr. McNeil has been very, very open and willing to. I'll do whatever she said. She'll do whatever she can to help. So.
And I appreciate that. I think that's good for me to know, and it's good for everyone to know, because the date was something that we were talking about, and this sends a very clear message to the community that even though these dates are a little bit different than what we had originally targeted, that commitment and professional care and transition is very, very firm between our retiring superintendent and our incoming superintendent.
I think that really, in addition to her subbing, and maybe bus driving. No. Staff has said no transportation. Oh wow, that's pretty unanimous.
Wow,
that is pretty unanimous.
Wow.
So I guess that means nutrition services then. Critical hire and nutrition services then. Pete's doing this, so the CO is saying that. So
that's all right.
Yeah. Critical hire and nutrition services. Yeah. Maybe a police officer, all kinds of certifications you can get.
All kinds of things. But yes, I will do whatever is necessary to help with the transition for as long as that takes. Absolutely.
You know what we should do, because we really need to solve that last piece, and I know Anthony's driving in. Want me to take a quick 5-minute recess, just so we can give him an opportunity without the whole world looking and watching. And wait, Trustee Church, you have a question?
I have a question while we're on that subject.
Please.
I want to clarify 60-day notice without cause. if I interpret that right, that means we give the superintendent 60 days notice, and at that point, after 60 days, we would owe her an additional 1 year of salary. So it would be 12, 13, 14 months.
Yeah, because the notice would be, that's my understanding, the notice would be, the actual termination, if you will, wouldn't be until after that 60 days.
And then she would get 1 year of salary.
Right, based upon the contract. Now, if the board and the superintendent negotiated something different, that will be on them to make whatever agreements in writing or what have you. Don't know, but it's a 60-day notice before the termination. So my understanding is such as yours, same as yours, Trustee Church. Okay. Oh, okay. So much for the 5-minute recess. We're Dr. Nicolette, who takes copious notes.
we can move on, and that's good discussion. I mean,
we
want to get this right for everybody's sake. So if you go to page 4, and under H, little h in parentheses, relocation expenses and transition per diem, where it says the superintendent shall be entitled to receive reimbursement for expenses incurred by her in connection with her moving and relocation to Washoe County for a period of 10 months. That's where the 10 months is. And I can tell you why we kind of scratched our head and is where does that 10-month, 12-month thing, because we had a lot of months discussions. And this initially is 3 months, and then we talked about 6 months, then we talked about 9 months, and then we talked about 12 months. And this is where we ended up, was on the 10 months. So the confusion is just because we worked so hard, and thank goodness we have it in ink, because there it is.
So this number then is...
the other number is correct.
Okay, so
the
12 is correct.
contract is correct as presented, except for the 22 versus 20.
This way you get the
We just got a little confused, and I appreciate that, Dr. Nicolette. But yeah, that is correct.
Okay, so that and on page 9E, it is 12 months.
Correct.
Okay, so in terms of the contract that that has been distributed, the draft, the only change was that typo, which was in 5D. It should say 22 days and not 20, and just so you know, that's in alignment with the leadership team for the school district. The leadership team for the school district, they have 22 days, so it stays. They have
20 days. They have 20 days. LT has 20 days.
22 effective July 1. They have 22 effective July 1. You wouldn't know that because you're retiring. Yes.
Yeah. Not your worry. Not your worry.
Yeah, you're retiring, so you have more than 20 days. You have more than 20 days.
Oh, yes. I have way more.
Yes, you have way more. So it stays in alignment. There are things such as that and others that the superintendent's contract is in alignment with the leadership team's contract, and that is one of them. So it goes to 22 days, and so with that change, stay consistent because that's the change that happens July 1. Other questions, comments, concerns? I want to make sure I'm not. I see you, Trustee Church. Sometimes you put a hand up, sometimes you put a finger up, sometimes you put. I'm trying to get you.
Yeah.
Go right. I got you. That's okay. I'll turn around and look at the screen. Go right ahead, sir.
All right. I just wanted to go through a few points and notes that I had, so I'm going to try to pull up my notes at the same time on this screen. Number one, I want to point out that what we voted on unanimously was a generic contract, knowing that the final one would be voted on differently or separately. And we voted, I believe, 270 to 310 for an annual salary. I don't know that we mentioned a COLA, cost of living increase. We certainly didn't mention $25,000 in relocation, nor the 8% deferred comp on top of the PERS that we have to pay into. And then there's the $9,600 annual car allowance. And if I count right, now Miss Emily made a comment about the number of days off being changed, but I think it's 39 paid days off that are reimbursable if you don't use them, be them sick or vacation. This one, unfortunately, does not have the performance incentives that was in the flyer that we sent out. And I'm more comfortable with a 3-year contract, with a 4-year contract. But when you add all those up, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm just going to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Church. Other questions, comments? Are you leaning, Trustee Mayberry? I'm trying to, it's, because this is, no, we're getting down to it. We're going to need a motion, one way or another.
Question. Thank you, Madam President. The question on going back to the relocation is that 25,000? So it's up to, but not to exceed 25,000.
Correct.
So I'm just curious, why not just give her $25,000 instead of over this 10-month period for relocation? It just seems really micro.
And this certainly, maybe, Dr. Nicolette?
That's a good question, and we talked quite a bit about that. This was a tough one because there is data and there's research. There's nothing terribly current with what's going on now. I will speak for myself. I was most comfortable with an endpoint number within a prescribed time frame, and I'll be just forthcoming with you. I hope that 25,000 isn't used. And we actually talked about being able to turn in receipts. We actually talked about, the challenges of the time, and we felt that putting a cap on it then really becomes incumbent upon the person receiving the benefit to then monitor it, right? And rather than us monitor it.
That was, I sort of connected the dots there too about sort of making it a little harder, so maybe we didn't get all the 25,000. So that makes sense, and I've I can appreciate the fact there's no bonus in here, and there was a bonus in the template, right? So there's not a bonus here. So I think that that gives me a little comfort. The president and I talked a little bit about the car allowance. But I think, from my perspective, being in government for almost 30 years, public CEOs, these are always controversial, polarizing at times because they're public agencies. Given the size, the scope, the magnitude of this organization, the largest employer in Washoe County, the fact that, in fact, I have some interesting tidbit here. Washoe County is the 59th largest school district. We know that. If we rank them on the Fortune 5,000 list, they would rank 2198. My point is that, these public CEOs, if you compare them to their private sector counterparts, they're not even close. So, and I think we need to keep that in perspective, and I hope the public keeps that in perspective. So, anyways, I support the contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mayberry. Go to Trustee Rodriguez and then back to Dr. Nicolette.
Thank you, Madam President. And Trustee Mayberry, you're not wrong there. Obviously, we've all gotten quite a bit of emails, and I do understand that if you want to kind of like escalate, you're going to have to pay for it. So. On that note, I just kind of want to come back to this contract. As far as the 10 months to relocation, I'm hoping that future Superintendent Ebert has already bought a house. If not, I know a realtor. So
Infield.
Oh, Infield. Sorry. Off to a good start. That's for not answering my phone call. The 10 months, is that allowing her 10 months to move and reside here, or is that just like what was
the intention there is no, I mean, it's her day to begin here is July 6th. Okay. And it's 10 months to complete the relocation process. It's you find a home, you have to sell a home. It's the whole piece of it.
Okay.
So it's not you don't have to move here for 10 months.
Gotcha.
It's a whole that's why it's a relocation package.
Okay. All right.
Okay, no, that's a good question. Dr. Nicolette? All of them are great questions.
I want to address the performance bonus. I'll speak for me personally, and I'm, if memory serves, because we talked about a lot of concepts and a lot of numbers. A performance bonus for me was very problematic for this reason. We are putting together a contract, and you put performance bonus in there, whether it's 1% or 50%, what we weren't ready to address was what are those goals and objectives that should be defined in a performance bonus, and we weren't ready to do that. So through the attorney's consultation, the two experts came up with, I don't want to say came up, that sounds like they pulled it from the sky, but, procedure and history and good practice. The deferred compensation was given to us as something to consider. And after a lot of discussion, because that was a shift, performance bonus, deferred compensation, that definitely was a shift. And I can speak for me, and I think President Taylor as well, because we ended up here, is it just made more sense. It was more comfortable. It was cleaner. And we could move forward with hiring Dr. Enfield without having to backtrack in what does a performance bonus entail. And so that really was the discussion and some of my thinking.
Thank you, Dr. Nicolette.
May I carry on
Please.
to that? So also for the sake of clarity, if I'm doing the math on this, the deferred compensation is what, about 24,500?
It's pretty close.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually slightly less than what we were targeting for a performance bonus.
It would have been 10%.
Right? 'Cause I want to state that for the record. If that's correct, I would like to be validated on that just to make sure that that's
is correct.
accurate.
The actual number, I think it's 24.8, I think it was 24.8. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Well, with the data we looked at, bonuses went all the way up to in the mid-30s and high 40s, or excuse me, mid-30s to low 40 range at the top end, and then below that. Historically, they were in the 15 range, but the discussions were definitely higher than that, as well as the data.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because when I was looking at this, I did notice the change, but then I looked at the amount that it is, because even though it's presented as a percentage, when you do that formula out, and I saw the final number, I said, okay, this is actually less than what we were originally targeting on the bonus side. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Correct. And of note, I'm sorry.
Go
May
right
I
ahead.
speak?
Please, go right ahead.
Of note is that COLA is a given, okay? And so then COLA is added to your base pay. And then the deferred compensation then is tied to that. So the deferred compensation will probably not over 4 years remain static. It will, the percentage remains the same, but the amount will increase.
Correct. But with the deferred compensation, another point is that it's not PERS compensable, correct?
Correct.
Is that what I'm reading in there? Which also makes it materially different than a bonus.
That's correct.
I would say as well, when the COLA is also tied to whatever cost of living adjustment, the leadership team would be eligible for, would get. So it's the same COLA. This is not out of alignment with others and other leadership team members in the district. And that's a part. So that isn't something that we say we're going to give you a 5%, 3%, 10%, whatever. It's what staff gets, you get, staff gets nothing. It just happens that way. I think it's really also important to note that one of the things that we talked about is we did not want Dr. Enfield to take a pay cut to take a job in the district that's 3 times the size of the district she has now. And that's important when you look at the total package. Her deferred compensation was significantly higher than where we are, and we had seen it really about 15,000. At one point we saw it was 18,000. Previous superintendents, with the present superintendent excluded, and so we met sort of in the middle in terms of where she was originally to here. That's part of negotiation, right? You just kind of, okay, that's it. Because again, that's something that we talked about is the importance of not asking somebody to take a pay cut to take our job. Other questions, comments? Clerk Manetto?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say to our ADA team, that would be Dr. Angela Taylor, Dr. Dye, and Mr. Anthony Hall. You guys did an amazing job. the time you must have spent on this and poring over the great details. I'm in awe. Thank you.
Well, we did. We got to know each other quite well. If we didn't before then,
We did.
we did.
7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night.
7 o'clock in the morning.
We're at 7 o'clock in the morning while
Sometime within the same 12-hour period. By the
Anthony's
way,
children were having ice cream and we were not. I do want to say that, you know, we remembered the conversations when we reviewed the template. And that was very important to us because the input at that time was, I would say, very insightful and very soulful. And so we all remembered, you know, information that you shared that was very important to you. And that rose consistently throughout our conversations. Let's remember our discussions when we were looking at the contract. And so please know that throughout this negotiative process, you all were very much in the forefront, as were our leadership team, because it was very important to us that we honor our discussions and feelings and honor this wonderful team that Dr. Enfield will be inheriting. And it's really important that we remembered and recognized that this wonderful team that's going to support our new superintendent feels respected and trusted and an integral part of a very dynamic team. So y'all came up quite a bit.
Thank you, Dr. Dye. Did it well? No, back over. I think were you going to go next?
And I was, but I'll defer to Trustee Mayberry.
Okay. Trustee Mayberry, and then and Trustee Mayberry, Trustee Church, and then Trustee Smith.
Well, no, it was just more of a comment, just an observation. I mean, we have to pay what the market bears. I mean, that's the reality of it. And this is a billion-dollar organization. I'm going to miss Kristen tremendously. I'm really excited for the future, though, and I'm inspired to see, you know, the leadership team sitting behind Dr. Enfield. So thank you all for coming here. I mean, I'm really excited about the future of education in Washoe County. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mayberry. Trustee Church.
Thank you very much. I just want to reflect back on what Dr. Nicolette said earlier when we were talking about the deferred compensation. That's $25,000 a year. 8%. And then, as Dr. Nicolette indicated, if there's a COLA, then the superintendent gets the COLA and the deferred compensation would go up, i.e. $30,000 or whatever based on the COLA for the next 4 years. So, again, I just feel that we voted on $31,000 as the cap, and basically what we're really doing is $345,000 when you just add in that deferred comp. And then when you add in the $25,000 in moving, that's another $6,000 per year, 4 years of the contract. So now we're up to $351,000. So I just wanted to throw that out. Thank you. And by the way, I will strongly support the superintendent regardless of how I vote today. That has no bearing whatsoever on the fact that she would be a welcome addition to the team, and look forward to working with her. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Church. I'm going to jump in just a moment because I have a couple of notes that might just comment on a couple of those. Certainly, relocation, there is no way an organization our size with this scope can ask someone to move and not pay for that move. I mean, I can't even imagine that. So to me, that isn't, hey, we're going to act, because of course we're going to pay to move someone. This is $1 billion, this is the biggest enterprise in our community. The largest budget, the largest number of employees, the largest number of buildings, and of course we have more little ones, right? More children. And the biggest impact, you can argue, across the community. And additionally, let's not forget that this was probably the hardest year in most people's memory for hiring a qualified, experienced, well-established superintendent. And we landed in a really good place. We landed in a really good place. So to the concern for anyone who may have a concern around relocation, of course you relocate when you hire a CEO of $1 billion business. Of course you do that. COLA adjustments, that's the regular cost of living. It wouldn't go up from 25 to 30 because usually COLAs are 1%, 2%. And so whether it be 1% or 2%, look, the staff's back there laughing like, yeah, right. I mean, it's a small number, but I think it should be tied to what staff gets. That's just regular, especially in a time when there's inflation. And so that isn't something that pulls me. And then again with the TSA, just let the record show. But I can say this because it's published record. She was getting $35,000 a year. She's taking less than 25. That's a meet in the middle. So yes, it might be a little larger. It's certainly not something that we discussed as part of the negotiation, but it is not out of alignment. It's just not out of alignment. And again, I feel very, very strongly we cannot hire someone to come and work in this district that we as a whole, and I went back and pulled up all the surveys, all the survey information that we got from Dr. Bryan and all the ratings and all of that, and you put the great fit and the good fit categories together, and nobody rated higher than Dr. Infield in every category. In every category. And I think that's important to note. That's absolutely important to note. And we cannot get someone like that at that level for this organization that has so much work to do. We have work to do. We have work to do. And say, come work with us and take a pay cut. I think we would be being irresponsible in so doing and treating this position, I think, arguably the most important position in our community. Trustee Smith and Trustee Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Taylor. Yeah, I mean, when I look at all the different parts and pieces of this contract, although the nuances of the amounts needed to be figured out, this was all part of the template. In lieu of a bonus, we have the deferred compensation. There was always going to be a car allowance that is with it, and it all balances out. I will say that net, this has landed where I expected it to be, and I'm particularly pleased to see the adjustment to 4 years, personally. But the enormity of the contract is not lost on me, particularly not based when we look at what our teachers make and what other staff members make, so none of that is lost on me. My support of this contract, though, absolutely reflects what I believe is that Dr. Enfield is going to be the beginning of our next great chapter in the Washoe County School District. And on that note, unless there's more discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
Certainly, you want to say something before that, or you want to have discussion after the motion gets on the floor?
If I just may chime in real quick.
Please, go right ahead, and then I'll come back to you, Trustee Smith.
No, I do want to echo pretty much what my colleagues here are saying. I know there's a group out there that want to look at the salary and things like that, and I would challenge that group to look at your chief medical examiner, who makes over $330,000 a year, and total benefits is over $400,000. I mean, we don't hear that, uproar there. I know our fire chief, has a take-home car. So there's things out there where this is nothing new. This is kind of what I'm trying to get at, and I do believe that Superintendent Infield is going to be a great new chapter, and I know the board stands behind you, and I know a vast majority of staff, from nutrition specialists to our police department to our educators, are behind you. And I do believe this contract's going to lock that in, and we'll have you for 4 years, so no getting out.
Thank you, Trustee Rodriguez. Okay, why don't we go right back to you as promised, Trustee Smith.
All right. Well, then on that note, I move that the Board of Trustees approves and enters into the written employment agreement, Superintendent of Schools, between the Board of Trustees and Dr. Susan Enfield as the Superintendent of Schools for the Washoe County School District pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute 391.110.
Second.
There is a motion on the floor to approve the contract between the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees and Dr. Infield, and there is a second. Is there any further discussion?
I have a point. Yes. I think we need to modify that motion to say with paragraph 5D, modified from 20 days to 22 days.
Can you take that friendly?
Yes, friendly accepted.
Okay, certainly. And JJ, I see you over there grabbing it, so thank you. You're amazing. Okay, with that modification to paragraph 5D, we have the motion on the floor to approve the contract. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposition?
Nay.
Okay, the motion carries 6-1. Let the record show it is 6-1. We have our new superintendent. Dr. Enfield, we are going to, I'll take a little bit of a point of privilege and give you an opportunity to address the board and all of that, but Superintendent McNeil, we're going to have two superintendents for a minute, y'all. Superintendent McNeil, please.
Thank you very much, President Taylor. So, oh boy, I should have gotten a water for this one. This is a momentous occasion. Yeah, thank you. You guys know me. You guys know me so well. There we go. Got it going here. Got it going. I am so very, very proud. I'm proud of our team, and I am super thrilled with where our district is going to be going. This is one of my children that means everything to me, and I am super excited just to have Dr. Enfield come into the Washoe County School District family, and you're going to do amazing. You have an entire team here to support you, and they are the best darn team in the world. And I will always, always, always be your thought partner and help you in any way possible, Debbie and myself included. But thank you so very, very much. And please come and address the board and say a few words. And then we've got a couple of things for you as a future, very soon to be resident of Nevada.
Yes, Nevada. And thank you for saying Nevada correctly.
I got that memo.
Yes, very good.
Thank you.
Wait, let me say this first.
Yes.
Superintendent Enfield.
Thank you, President Taylor. And thank you, Trustee Mayberry, Trustee Nicolette, Trustee Minetto, Trustee Rodriguez, and Trustee Smith.
And don't forget,
and Trustee Church.
You can't see him. He's not in the room. We don't want to leave him out.
Thank you for your faith in me. I am humbled. I'm excited. I'm energized. I'm nervous. I think something would be wrong with me if I weren't a little. This is a big change, and some of the team and I were talking. I think we're all a little nervous, right? This is a big change, but I'm very, very humbled to be joining this community. And I want to thank the extraordinary team of people behind me for the warm welcome. Everybody has been so welcoming. Even the front desk clerk at my hotel who remembered me from the interview day, and when I arrived said, "Congratulations." And I said, not yet, but I appreciate the spirit. And so I know that I'm entering a very, very special community. I do want to thank Mr. Hall for all of his help, and I really want to take a moment to acknowledge Superintendent McNeil. There's a part of me that believes strongly if you haven't been a superintendent during a pandemic, you haven't been a superintendent. I know, probably better than anyone in this room, what you've gone through and how you've served over the last couple of years. I also know how much you deeply love this district and this community. And we are in the same boat. I too am handing over a community that I love very much to a new leader, and it comes with mixed emotions. And but this is my pledge to you. I will take care of and treasure and respect and serve this community in honor of your legacy and try to make you proud. We'll turn to you often for help and guidance and wisdom, but just know how honored I am to be filling your shoes in particular. So thank you. And finally, just one other note of thanks to the trustees. I know how much you wanted me to start in June. And I am deeply grateful that you respected my need to remain in a community that I've served for 10 years, to see the ones who started out as third graders walk across that graduation stage in a couple of weeks, to say goodbye to my community. But I want to let this community know. Don't think for a minute that means that I am not just chomping at the bit to get here, and that I look forward to living, leading, and serving, and really becoming a member of this really special community. So thank you, everybody. Deeply grateful.
Thank you, Dr. Enfield. There is more. Well, why don't you stay there for a moment?
Stay tuned.
Let me just hang on. Let me just say this for a moment. There's certainly more, but I want to say a couple things just about this community. Certainly, even as you began, right? There are questions, and I'm not sure, and why would we do, and so on. But I will say this: what I know about the people in this community, even those that I don't often agree with, is that they care about the community, right? And they want the district to be successful. And I'm going to go out on the limb and say that they will say, okay, let's lock arms and get this done together. That's what we're hoping. And I know you've spoken about that already. And I do really believe that. It comes from a place that we want to be good together. And so I appreciate how you've already managed some of the challenges that came up and talked about it contextually for all of us. So just know that it's people love this place and want it to be good and want it to be well. And I believe we'll have that lock arms and make this thing happen. As we do that, Dr. McNeil, I'm probably going to have more than one. Wait. I'm going to have more than one. Look, we are still your bosses, young lady. We are still your bosses. Just, I'd be remiss at this. I know I'm going to have another couple times to say something to you about what you have done. Just an amazing job. I could not have seen us with a better leader during this time that we have just undergone. When you stepped in and said, yes, I'll be the superintendent, you had no idea what was coming. How could you, right? How could you? But you've done it with grace and with power and with strength and with through all the good and the bad and the ups and the downs and the pain and the tears and the pain and the tears and the pain and the tears that came way more than it should have. You have stood strong and you have led us. You have led us so that we can be a district that can attract somebody like her. So in a great deal, we thank you for that, because I mean it was really hard to do what you did for these. You could have really screwed it up, right? I mean. So that we couldn't get someone that says, hey, I see some great promise here. I love it and I want to keep it going, and you didn't. So thank you. Thank you for how you've handled this whole thing and for leading us to where we are today. So you'll be a part as we turn the page when it's that time. You'll be a part of that as well. I love you. So I love you too. Okay, your turn.
All righty, we are going to cue a video. While she's signing the contract, could you cue the video?
Yeah, no take backs.
Yeah, let's get that. Let's get that ink.
Should we pinky swear until we?
Trail where the desert meets the hill.
So that is our fabulous choir over at Huffaker Elementary School, and I want to do a huge shout out to Ms. Vandal for organizing that and organizing our students from Natchez. It's always scary when Superintendent McNeil gets a great idea and a welcoming ceremony, but Vanjie always carries it off, so thank you to Vanjie. And I know.
Okay, I was trying to remind you.
Wow.
Look, we're your bosses. No, I'm kidding. Sorry. That's going to be my new line.
All right, and we have a little itty bitty gift for you.
Have the big man help carry it.
Yeah, we aren't sure how you're going to get that on the plane.
Yep, this is a basket filled with Nevada memorabilia, and I want to thank Vice President Nicolette for helping us out, JJ, my assistant Tammy Covington. We had some principals donate. We have President Sandoval donated. So great stuff in there, but it's all, there you go, there's your cowboy hat.
Right on. Well, looks good.
So congratulations.
And you have a copy of the school song in there, which we expect you to have memorized.
The state song. You said school.
School song.
I might not have your moves.
Yeah. That's what happens when you have a music teacher on the board. Thank you. Why don't you leave that right there for, yes. Okay, we're going to go right ahead to our student. Dr. Nicolette, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say quickly that we had another video just in case, and I'm really glad we didn't have to show that one. That's the good news, but I also really was looking forward to that basket just in case, so I'm glad you're receiving it. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Nicolette. Okay, we're going to go right ahead. We know the North Valley's JROTC ceremony starts at 6 o'clock, but we'll go ahead and get through board reports. If we have anything that you want to share or that won't wait, then we'll go around. We'll start with Trustee Mayberry.
Well, I'm just so glad
Would you mind if everyone holds their report so we can get to North Valley's? Yeah. Okay. So why don't if you would just keep your and carry it over if you would, everyone, if that's okay. So we'll go to superintendent's report. Anything, Madam Superintendent?
So just really quick, as you all know, I always wear our high school T-shirts, and so I'm wearing HUG. We have been to JORTC events, going to North Valleys, but we've been to Wooster, McQueen, Sparks High, and Friday is HUG. So I got my green on. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, colleagues. We'll just carry your reports over, if you would, until our next meeting, so we can get to North Valleys as soon as we can. JJ, public comment, closing public comment. Do we have any?
Pat Dannenberg.
I'm sorry, Danber? Please come on up. Welcome. Welcome, Mr. Dander. Mm-hmm.
That's a hard act to follow.
It is. Sorry. I'm so sorry. It is.
Amazing time for our school district, and I'm truly grateful to be here with you guys today. And Dr. McNeil, hopefully I get to see you running around in the neighborhood a little bit more if you have more time. So, and then Dr. Taylor, it was great to see you at the foundation breakfast. Yeah. And that was a truly special moment for us at the breakfast. So I'm here today. I have special concern. You mentioned earlier about the community being involved in the schools. The board has two policies that really impact the community organizations, specifically nonprofits. And in 2018, the board passed a new policy with 1140. It impacted the nonprofits for being able to communicate and send flyers home. Traditionally, that is the largest communicative tool that we have as nonprofits for sending a message home. And in essence, if you were not a pedagogical, hopefully I said the term right, use organization or something related already with the school district, you can't send something home. And the new board policy with 1140 kind of contradicts, in my opinion, 1160, where 1160 has a very good intent and philosophical approach of supporting the community, but then you got 1140 and it doesn't. And so for us, I represent not just the Boy Scouts of America today as Pat Dannenberg and the COO for our local office, but I also represent, standing here today, the Girl Scouts of America, the Elks, Rotary, and several other nonprofits that I've talked to in how this has affected each of us. Some can't even just send home a scholarship form announcing that the Elks has a scholarship that's available. So they can't share that technically. So what I'm here, and I could say everything that I wrote down, but I also shared with you another school district policy that I helped write with a school district attorney in Castle Rock, Colorado. That policy is very informative. It helps define exactly what the community can and can't do on sharing inside and sending home. But then it also has in relation to it what happens inside the schools. So if somebody like myself, or let's say Rotary, wants to go in and do a reading time with the students, Rotary cannot hand out something to them. But they can. But they can't, because there is no district policy on that right now. And so what I'm just simply asking is if you would reconsider this policy, I'd love to get with you and help you better understand another way for a policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Denberg. Thank you for being here.
Pablo Nava Duran.
Welcome back, Mr. Duran.
Here we go. So I want to talk about, I'd like to say congratulations Dr. Susan Nailfield for becoming new superintendent. I'm very excited. So I want to quickly talk about Joe Model email and his fellow who misinformation about her being a fellow at Highland Public School is way worse than Washington School District. So here's the truth. So instead, Washington State ranked top 10 in education, and we ranked 49th in education. And don't tell me it's a Highland school, public school is way worse than Washington School District, because we know Washington School District is doing much better than other Nevada County. And we know Highland have a huge minority population, which is 50 or 60% of Hispanics, so minorities. So I want to give a credit to her, because some people think minority did not do well in public schools. So it may be true, may be false, because typically minority do score below average. So when she's doing work with the minorities, that will increase the higher score. So give credit to that. So moving on. So move on to Pryor versus Doe. I want to talk about Pryor versus Doe. I said curbside of Texas Governor Greg Abbott. They wanted to ban undocumented immigrants from attending public school. So I want to be clear, if Pryor versus Doe was overturned, so we want to make sure we have to protect the undocumented student, and why we go to provide public school for undocumented students, or as state legislature will allow undocumented students to attend public schools. So that's my questions for today. So, and I want to talk about the violence of a school, but it seems like there are no major school violence around it besides one. So I want to make sure that we want to address school violence, maybe adapt board policy, and maybe update student code of conduct. So if a student who gets suspended, I think we'll likely kick out the school or send it to the special ed school. So that's my opinion. So I want to maybe update for that. So keep it sweet. So, and also I wanted to say that. Give me 1 second. I wear a Mickey hat, so do you like my hat? There we go. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Mr. Pablo Duran. Nava Duran.
Valerie Bianaka.
Welcome back, Ms. Fianaka.
I like your Mickey hat, Pablo. Welcome, Dr. Enfield. I'm that person that Dr. Taylor referred to. You and I will be polar opposites, but I will support you. I will lock arms with you because I care about this school district. I want every child to be served in this community equally well. And I will lock arms with you, truly, for the betterment of our kids. Dr. Taylor, I owe you a public apology. I had dinner last night with a state legislator who explained to me that one of your competitors on the Democrat side may have sponsored the inflammatory mailer recently set out in your district for your assembly race. I had not considered that possibility, and I apologize to you personally in this public forum for not believing you when you told me you had nothing to do with that flyer. However, the fact that 6 trustees who are supposed to be nonpartisan and to represent all of us have not condemned that inflammatory flyer speaks volumes to integrity and the ability of all of you to represent in a nonpartisan fashion over 50% of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fianaka. I appreciate the apology.
The board received emails from Lori Follett and Emma Lee Snyder.
Thank you, JJ. All right, everyone, that concludes our meeting. Our next meeting is right here, May 24th at 2 p.m. We are adjourned.